Hello everyone, this is Nayiri from Low Carbon Fasting. So our guest today is a nutrition and health researcher, and she's also the co-author with Dr. Chris Knobbe of the Ancestral Diet Revolution, where they investigate the role that seed oils have played in the destruction of human health in the past 80 to 100 years, and that's their global impact. Suzanne Alexander, welcome to Low Carbon Fasting.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Suzanne, you are the co-author of the book. However, today we are not discussing the book. We're discussing something else that you've been up to, which is equally exciting, fascinating, interesting, if not more. So
it has been a remarkable journey, and I just love that you were there with me. I appreciated that so much.
I was with you on the African expedition. Let's tell the viewers what we're talking about.
So much to me. When I would see you were there, it meant everything to me. Thank you. You were like holding my hand. It made me. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, Suzanne. Okay, so you decided to go to two different parts of the world, meeting ancestral tribes and looking into exactly what they're eating and where their health is, and whether industrialized seed oils have penetrated into their diet.
Yes.
You first started off with the Pacific Islands. You went there with Dr. Knobbe, and that was all good and fine. You didn't report too much back from there. However, your more recent one was in Africa, the African expedition, where you went alone. And you were so brave to do it alone. But from Africa, you were actually recording short Instagram videos for the rest of us to see exactly what you were experiencing. So let's start off with the Pacific Islands. Where exactly did you go, and which tribes did you meet?
Okay, so I'll switch over to the presentation I created for PowerPoint, and then we can just, visual is really great. You can see everything. So here we go. Can you see it?
I can see it.
Excellent. Okay, so here we are. This is where we are. So what we did is, I'm very budget minded. And at this point, I was working with Chris for the foundations, and now I'm kind of branched out on my own. I just felt that, well, I'll get into that as we move on. So what we did is Chris was going to be speaking at the Low Carb Down Under down over in Australia. And so we knew that it was kind of in the region where we really wanted to one day go to begin our investigation into the ancestrally living tribes. And because we wrote so much about the Papua New Guinea tribes that were living in our book, we wrote about their diet, which was mostly sweet potatoes. 90% of their diet was sweet potatoes. So we thought, well, it's kind of in that neck of the region. So if you look over here where my cursor is, Chris was over here. And so look at where the area is. But we weren't going to go to Papua New Guinea because I researched this, and this is my life. I delve into, and I realized that a great deal of in this region has become overtaken with the processed food and seed oils, and also tourism, and this kind of, which infiltrates into the native tribes. And it's everywhere. It's all over the world. And to try to find truly ancestrally living indigenous tribes is so difficult because they're far and few in between. They're just so becoming tourism traps. And so I realized that the tribes we had originally studied were really inundated and had gone back. Let me go back here. And so I thought, I looked and I found over in Jayapura and Wamena, especially Wamena, there was some tribes living way up high in the highlands that are still living ancestrally. And so I searched and searched and searched, and I found guides. And this is the thing, when we're going to travel, you have to find guides because they all speak different languages. No one's speaking English except for your guides that you find. So I so we knew that we could do that one. And I said, well, there's all these other islands. Let's go to a whole bunch of islands. So Chris just kind of gave me carte blanche. He says, look, you know what you're doing. You know what, so just do what you need. So I planned out the trip. I found 7 places that we could go. But the worst part is there's not a lot of flights that go into these islands. And so that was the biggest thing. And so it took us forever. So I'm up here in Syracuse. This is where I live, in this region. And so I had to fly down to Atlanta. Then I went to LAX. Then I flew 16 hours over here to Melbourne. And then or to Brisbane. I think I was in Brisbane. No, Melbourne. I think I went to Melbourne. I don't know, wherever I flew. Then we had to fly from there. Once I got Chris there, we flew to Bali, then to Makassar, then to Jayapura. Now, Jayapura is over in Indonesia, West Papua, Indonesia. And so we had to go here first because there's a little teeny tiny airport to get us up to where Wamena is, which is high. So it's very hard to get there. So first of all, let's go through this. So these are just some of the people that we're going to meet as we go through this. So here we go. So our first stop is we went to Jayapura, and just in Jayapura, there was it was more like a city. They call it a city, but when you think of, like, I think of New York City, and it's not. It's basically where there's cars. So anything that has cars, it's kind of like a city. And so we got there, we went in, and we saw that they had seed oils there in their stores. There wasn't really indigenous living people there, but they did have a lot of processed food. But their number one selling oil was palm oil, and they actually had it. It was a huge wall, and they actually had where it said the sign, this is our most popular. I thought, I've never seen that before anywhere I've gone. This is it. Palm oil is about a 10 to 12 linoleic acid percentage on that. It's lower. It's kind of like an olive oil. However, when I was talking to Dr. Knobbe about this, I said, but look, and I went and I kept saying, he kept saying, well, it's not that bad. I said, I wouldn't put it in my body. I just don't put any oils in my body. I just don't. I never have. But so he said, well, let's look. So I looked at all of the processed food, and all of their processed food, basically the first ingredient was palm oil. Now, palm oil is also produced in that region. So the more that I'm traveling, the more I'm starting to realize is whatever the oil that's kind of made within that region, that's the oil that they gravitate towards. But so I'll get to that in a minute. I'll show you something interesting. As we go, you'll see there's a kind of falls into a plan you can see. So then we flew from Jayapura, and then we took a tiny little plane, and we went up to where we are with the Dani tribe. This is the large tribe that we went to. We went to 2 different Dani tribes while we were there. There's the large tribe and then a small tribe. You can see it's quite a large village. All of the huts are made with grass and sticks and so forth. It's a little different than when you go to Africa. Yes, it's very similar with the grass and sticks, but there you'll see that they have another component that they add to make it a little more durable. But it was beautiful weather there the whole time we were there. And the thing that's very important to think about is in these tribes, they are not sedentary. And I cannot stress this enough. I'm seeing too many people in the carnivore, low carb community saying, you can eat this diet and you really don't have to exercise. You'll be healthy. Wrong. Absolutely. I can't stress this enough, especially when you actually hear, well, I've got to tell you about the Maasai. We've been totally misled. This is important to know. If we're going to eat this way in any way, these people are ancestral living. They do not sit. They will sit sometimes, but they're living ancestrally. You have to move, and you will see how much effort it takes to find food and to cook their food every day. It's effort. And so they're not sitting on a screen all day. They're not sitting on a phone. They're not just watching TV. They are moving. I almost believe it's almost more important than our diet because they're moving, and they talk about this. The tribes have spoken about this. So at this point, I've asked them, we went to their tribe and we saw where they live. And I said, where would you get salt from? Because you hear so many people talking about, we have to have tons and tons of salt. Okay. I hope I can dispel this myth. Most of the tribes do not use a lot of salt. They really don't use hardly any spices. Okay. So we need to think about this. It's not prevalent. So I said, do you have a salt spring? Where do you get salt from? We climbed this mountain. Took us a long time, very steep. I loved it because I climb mountains. Chris doesn't. He also had a knee injury, so he injured his knee severely during this. So we get to the top, and what she's been carrying is this banana stalk. It's not a banana peel, but it's a banana stalk. So she peels it, and she's got a stick with her. And she's basically, I've got videos that you can actually see where she's basically taking away and manipulating the cell structure. so that when she peels the layers apart and we go into the spring, now it should be here, I don't know where it went. We go into the spring and I jump in with her and we're twisting and turning, and all of it is allowing the salt to impregnate each of the layers. And we do it for about half an hour. And of course I taste it, and it's not that much salt. It's very, very minor tasting. You can taste a little bit of it in it, but it was not really salty. So we wad it all up, we take it back, and she hangs it to dry. And what they do is they can use this, they can break off pieces and just throw it into their water as it's boiling. And that's where they get their salt from. That's how they do this. So that's their salt intake. But again, it's a lot of walking just to get this. Then, now I'm trying to see here. Let me see here. Okay, something went wrong on that one. This is in Jayapura. This is the store I was telling you about that we went into. And again, here's the sunflower oil. I don't know if you want to cut that last part out. We just did. Now, somehow that got out of order. This is the best seller in Papua New Guinea. Again, notice that notice the big size that they sell. It was very prevalent. And I did notice that the people in Jayapura, which was kind of like a city before we got to West Wamena, they weren't as slim and trim. You could see that processed food has infiltrated this region. Again, here's the Pringles can. Notice palm oil is the first ingredient. Now you're going to see Pringles cans throughout the journey because I kept going to them. And Pringles keeps modifying. Wherever they know is their oil sold, they will change their ingredient list. It's really fascinating to see. Again, this is America. This is what ours is. In the United States, we have the first vegetable oil. It is corn oil, cottonseed, olea, soybean. Look at all the sunflower. Look at the different oils we have in ours. Much more toxic. Much more toxic. Again, that was their prevalent. And so here we are. Now we're going to go, now we're at Jayapura. So now we're going to fly to Wamena. Here we are at the market. So we meet, this was our translator. His name is Rami, and he was our guide and our translator. They've got a huge market in all the places. There's beautiful markets, and they all come and sell their produce. They're very much plant-based in this region, very plant-based. And just fresh, again, there is no chemicals, nothing used. It's very ancestrally raised. There's not a lot of EMFs. I'm very sensitive to electromagnetic fields, very, very sensitive. And I just felt like my body was just I wasn't like jittery. It was wonderful. And I slept, I was sleeping. I don't sleep well. And I was sleeping for 5 hours. That's a first for me. And I was even dreaming. It was really amazing. So EMFs to me, it's another thing to think about. It's powerful. So here's again, the tribe in the large tribe. You'll see, yes, because I can get taken down a lot on social media because of this tribe does not wear a lot of clothing. And this is how they are. It's very ancestral. And the women just wear like a grass skirt. They're bare on top. The men only wear a kotika. A kotika is like a gourd, and it's whatever shape that they like that goes over their private release. And then they have like 2 strings that just hold it on. That's all they wear. At first it was a little like, oh, okay. But the more I was with them, then you forget about it. You just kind of don't even think about it. This is the chief over here. This is Chief Mabel. This is different than the other tribes in Africa. This is the family. It just keeps being passed on, passed on. It's in the genes. If you look over back at this one, look at this. See this right here? This is a 370-year-old mummy. And this is the Dugan clan. And he is a celebrated mummy. He's Wimtok Mabel. So this is the great grandfather of the new chief that's there now. This is from the 18th century. So again, this is the chief. Notice that some of them they're starting to incorporate wearing regular clothing. They are. Over here, look at the children. The children's stomachs, I said to Chris, look at their descended stomachs. Their abdominal region is descended. That's a really good indication that they have kwashiorkor disease, and it's basically malnutrition, lack of protein.
Right.
Yeah. And so again, remember, they're mostly plant-based. Most of their diet is sweet potatoes with some cabbage. There's fruit everywhere. Fruit absolutely everywhere you go. It's just wildly growing. But sweet potato is their prize. They will eat pork or chicken, maybe once or twice a month, but not a lot, because the pork is is their prize. The village is called, the whole town that they're living in is called Wamena. Wam in the Dani language means pig. That's how revered it is. They've actually named their area, their region after the pig. Okay, here we are up. Now we climbed that mountain we talked about. This is what we jumped into the spring. And this is how we are getting the salt to go into the layers of the banana stalk. And we kept twisting and turning and twisting and turning. And it was just so neat to experience. This is what they do. This is ancestral living. This is the second tribe I went to. Now, this day I went alone because Chris had injured his knee climbing the mountain to get to the spring. And so I went on my own. And so Rami and I went. And this is lovely. The women, again, not a lot of clothing. This is their kitchen. This picture over here is their kitchen. And you can see that, you know, they've got a fire going, and this is where they do their cooking. And mostly they're going to be cooking is their sweet potatoes. Now watch what it takes to make the sweet potatoes, to cook them. So we go out and they're using a plain old stick. This is their ancestral tools, and they're digging up. They've got every color of potato, sweet potato you can imagine. They go down, there's like this little spring area, and they wash the plants and things that we're going to be cooking. We go back, we have to go out and we have to gather. Now, this is taking most of the day. We have to go and go down the hill. We collect all the greens, collect all the sticks, all the things to make the fires. Then we come back, they have 2 fires they have to make. One fire over here is going to be heating the stones. They're going to be cooking with stones. And so that takes forever for them to build this and again, they're making the fire the old-fashioned way. Then while they're doing that, we're over here, there's another pit. This is for the earthen oven pit. And we line this with all of the greens that we had collected earlier in the day. Layers and layers and layers. And of course, I here I'd studied this, but to actually go and do it, I was like, this is amazing to watch. So then they go, because I'm there, they think it's a celebration. It's time for celebration. So he goes and he picks a pandan fruit. Now, I'd studied the pandan fruit because it's one of the most supposedly nutrient dense, huge phytonutrients, so many wonderful antioxidants that are supposedly healing. So I see it, and the only thing they're going to use is the outside seeds. There's a whole bunch of seeds. I'm so fascinated to see what they're going to do with this. So while he's preparing this, and he's got his kotika on, it looks like he has pants on, but he doesn't. He's taken pig fat with ash and so forth, and they paint that on their lower region. That's either during a celebration or to go to war. And so because I was there, he felt it was to honor me. And I was very humbled by that. And so here they've taken their homemade grasping tools. These stones are blazing, scorching hot, and they're picking them up after they've been cooked, and they put them in the bottom of the earthen oven pit. Then they look at the different colored sweet potatoes they've got. All different, hundreds of them. And then they put more stones on top. Then on top of that, they put a little bit of green, and then they put the pandan fruit on top of that. Then they wrap all those greens around the top of it, and you can see they've made like this dome. It's like a big convection oven type thing. And it's steaming. All of the greens, the water in the greens are steaming the plants. It's brilliant how they use ancestral thinking. It's brilliant. So at that time, I said, well, how long will this take? And they tell Ronnie about an hour. They said, let's go in the hut and sit. Now, here's a key thing. They're heavy smokers. They smoke so much. And there's now smoking cigarettes from like what the companies from America are eating. They're no longer smoking the cigarettes that they normally would have grown their own tobacco. And there is some science that say, now I'm part Native American, and so my ancestors would have been smoking like the peace pipe and so forth. But of course they wouldn't inhale it. They would just, there's research saying that there is benefit to natural tobacco, that it has special healing properties. They're no longer doing that. They're now smoking the cigarettes and they're inhaling, they're doing. So I'm interested to watch their health, what's going to be happening with them over the next few decades. Will we start to see cancer? They do not. They've been smokers. We wrote about this in the book. They are heavy smokers. And we also wrote about that in their huts that they're using, I'll go back, in their huts that they're cooking everything, and the smoke is just billowing in there. Plus they're smoking at the same time, but they don't have emphysema. I noticed when we were hiking, they're still smoking while we're hiking. There was no coughing, no wheezing, nothing. Unbelievable health. Unbelievable health. And Rami's almost 70, and he didn't get tired, nothing, but he was smoking immensely. So here we go. Let me go down here. This was interesting. This, I found all these little shacks everywhere, and they're all over, in all the islands, even in Africa, and they're selling all the processed food. And they're very close to where the tribes can walk to. So this is where they can get their cigarettes. If they want to start adding seed oils, if they want candy, they want to get potato chips. But there's also all they'll have feminine hygiene products if women want to go to that maybe altering to be changing their diet, their ways. These women, when they have their period, they would go to a special hut during that time, and that's where they just go for that week. But if they want to change and start to add in the feminine hygiene products and so forth, they're available here for them. So there are some good things available. I mean, some people may say that's not, because they're filled with chemicals too, you know? But they'll also have clothing and diapers and things like that. So interesting, but they did have seed oils there. They did. So again, we visited the stores in the region, and their palm oil was the key oil that they're using. I asked the tribes there, are they using them? Some of them were like, no, and some of them said, well, sometimes. And you could kind of tell that some of them were not as pristine. I also noted that their teeth, that's one of the first things I always look. I was studying to be a dentist at one point, and I always look at people's teeth because I think that's a sign of health, because that's the beginning of our digestive system. And many of them didn't have teeth. They only had a few teeth left. And I asked if they brushed their teeth, and they said no. And, you know, and a lot of people say you don't have to brush their teeth. Wait till we get to see what happens in Africa. It's so neat. I've been able to see different ways of what works and what doesn't. So I don't know. Is it because that they're more plant-based, that they aren't getting the wonderful fat soluble vitamins A and K2? Can't say D because they're in the sun all the time. They're getting plenty of D, but the K2 and vitamin A are so important. I know everyone talks about, well, there's vitamin A in plants. Well, that's not the true vitamin A. That's not retinol. So it doesn't, many of us can't even convert to that. So we would not be getting that what we get from animal products. I think that's important. I really do. So that was an important part for me. Then we went and we flew to Honiara, Solomon Islands. This took us about 36 hours to fly there. We had to go to 5 different airports just to get here. And so we finally got there. And at this point, the going up and going down, we were both having ear problems, but I ended up having some major ear problems because of that flight. And I'll tell you later. This is what we were greeted to. I was like, oh, it almost brought me to tears. We're seeing that this is how they met us at the airport. I thought it was beautiful. It was exciting, you know, it was just wonderful. This is the kind of store. Now, Honiara, it was very difficult to find people living tribally still. It's very difficult. We went out into the bush and we found families that were living out there, but they had regular homes. They didn't have running water. They had like tanks that would collect rainwater, but they were growing, you know, very, very plant-based, a lot of food, again, sweet potatoes. So this region, very, very big with sweet potatoes, taro, cassava, very big. But they were also adding in fish, because they're not high up in the highlands now. Of course, the Deni tribe would not have fish because they aren't near the water, they're up in the mountains. But of course they had the pig and the chicken. These people here, they will have fish. But I asked them, well, do you eat a lot of fish? And they said, well, we eat a lot of canned fish. And I said, canned fish? You're right here. And they said, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. So then I looked at Dr. Knobbe and I said, I'm concerned. He said, why? And I said, because mark my word, their canned fish is probably in seed oils. Now, Chris doesn't buy canned fish. I sometimes will get sardines if I'm traveling, but I always make sure it's in spring water. And he didn't know this. He didn't know that there was something like that. So I had to educate him about that. So we started looking and we started finding most of their canned tinned fish was in soybean oil. And so I thought, oh, that's not good. And again, notice how the oils, it's not a big, huge wall, but they've got, and their key was palm oil as well. Palm oil was another key thing. So we were talking with a lot of the people there, and they really believe that oil is healthy. They've been led to believe, like most of us, oh, it's heart healthy. It's so, you know, it's so easy. It's right there. You know, we don't have to worry about it. So I thought that was very interesting to see. And we see this across. Now, Samoa, I couldn't wait to get to Samoa. I studied them for a long time. I knew that they're this statuesque, they're so tall, and just, you know, you just think of them as very athletic type of people. So we got there, and again, we see this beautiful, the produce everywhere, fresh, you know, all naturally, you know, better than organic. I mean, just so unbelievable. When we were eating the fruit, I could not believe how different it was from our fruit. So different tasting, just the energy that just, it was so, even compared to our organic fruit, because our organic fruit still does have, you know, toxins put on them. Don't anyone tell you it's not. These were unbelievable. So our guide, Poe, took us to meet Livingston. He's about 82 years old, and they live pretty close to traditional, but they have incorporated some seed oils. And you can tell by their build. Okay, they do have the extended, you know, you'll see they're getting a little large, and his nephew is the same. They do not have kitchens. Their kitchen is outside. All the cooking is done outside traditionally. Everything you see is his yard. This is what his family has lived in forever. They've kind of updated a little with a regular roof on it now. But over here, this is the kitchen, right? This is the kitchen. This is what they cook. All of this is all produce and fresh fruit and coconuts. This is what they really gravitate towards. This is the outdoor kitchen. And in this pot, we have a sea eel. And here we have, I believe it was cassava leaves. And they're both, here's the important point that I always was, you know, I was going by research. I'm a researcher, you know, and coconut oil, they're going to be using coconut oil. I asked every single region that we were in, how often do you use coconut oil? And they all said, we don't. I said, you don't? And they said, no, we use coconut milk or coconut cream. I said, well, we've been told to use coconut oil. No, the only time we use coconut oil is on our skin or our hair. So I thought that was really interesting. So everything is freshly made. They do everything so fresh. And it was just so beautiful. Here, this is Norman. He was showing us how they are going to make the coconut milk and coconut cream. So they have a little bench that they sit on, they scrape it, it goes into the pan, and then they have like a grass, they squeeze it out. And I've got videos on all of this you can see. You probably see them. And of course, I've never had, I'm allergic to coconut. But I promised Chris I was going to try, and no matter where I go, even though I'm very sensitive and allergic to a lot of plants and things, I'm just going to be grateful and eat whatever I'm given, and God will help me to deal with whatever I have. So I drank the coconut water. It was so delicious. It was so fresh, so untainted. You know, it was just beautiful. And they drink this regularly, and it's loaded with you know, electrolytes. It's loaded. It's beautiful.
Did you have a reaction?
I'll tell you. I'm 5'8". I weighed 112 pounds when I left. And when I returned, I weighed 105. So I had ongoing diarrhea because I was struggling with a lot of the food that we were eating, but it is what it is. I mean, you know, my body will deal with it. If I deal with this my whole life, it's you deal with it. It is. So this is what they made for us. The neighbor next door, because they don't really have chickens and things, but so they catch the wild birds. There was a dove. The neighbor caught a dove, and they cook that on the open fire. And so here's the dove here in this basket that they made. Then there's the fresh coconut water. Over here is a fresh caught sea eel cooked in their homemade coconut milk. Then we've got the leaves, the taro leaves that are cooked in the homemade coconut milk. Then over here, I've always studied about the breadfruit. I couldn't wait to try it. They're breadfruit and they're green banana. Now they're in Africa, it's called matoke, I believe. I think it's more like a plantain. I really believe it's like a plantain, and they really love these. I found it to be very starchy, very, they cook it not very long. It was hard. It didn't have a lot of flavor. And of course, then the breadfruit I heard so much about, but it was lovely. This is so cool. It's their cocoa Samoa, and they all grow cocoa beans. And so they take the cocoa bean and they grind it down, and they make, it's like a tea, but I thought almost tastes like hot chocolate. And of course, I'm allergic to chocolate too. So I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get migraines. So I just took a little sip of this because I couldn't, if I get a migraine, that's not a good thing. So I just took a little sip, but it was delicious. But this is something they just pride. They have pride in this coca Samoa. So that was our meal. The seal was the eel was a lot of bones. It was very moist, but there was so many little tiny little bones. I just kept picking the bones out. It was neat to try, but it was just interesting. But it's loaded in nutrients. I mean, it's huge in so many important nutrients, and I can see why they're consuming it. Again, their ancestral diets, they know what they need, and that is very powerful. It's amazing what's in the eel. This is what we found in Samoa. Look at how big their wall of oil is compared to what we saw in Honiara. Theirs, again, it was palm oil. However, soybean oil was used extremely heavily in this region when I was speaking with the people there. Their fish, again, they all were saying they don't buy fresh fish, it's too expensive. So, and they love fish, but they eat a lot of tinned and packed in soybean. And I could see why they're getting larger now, because they're no longer eating fresh, they're getting the canned. So if guys, if you love the tinned fish and sardines, those kinds of things, they're great. They've got calcium, they've got so many wonderful nutrients in them. Get them in spring water or water. Spring water is better. It's so much healthier for you. Please, there's so many that are in oils. Some will say olive oil, but we don't know. 70% of olive oil is like impregnated with other things. I wouldn't even go there. Coconut oil, again, is rarely used. It's mostly coconut milk, even more than coconut cream, I found. It was really, really eye-opening, really eye-opening. Our next place was Vanuatu. This was unbelievable. What a difference. You can see when a region understands health and is prized to them, because it really shows in everything that they do. So we went to this tribe. They were beautiful. Absolutely. Their teeth were beautiful. Their skin, if you noticed on the Dani tribe, their skin was sagging and hanging a lot. It didn't have that plumpness, and it just, this tribe, this elderly man, he's about my age, and we spent a lot of time with him. He's one of their warriors. He actually walked to show, in a lot of the tribes, their traditions are to show that you're a man, that you're brave and strong and powerful, that you can do certain things. Their way of doing it is to walk on hot coals. And to watch him walking, I was like, golly, that's gotta hurt. But they're able to totally tune it out, and they just deal with it. It's amazing. And so there's a lot of videos I have with him on showing how, his hair and skincare, his teeth, how he takes care of his teeth. They do brush their teeth, and they use the coconut skin. And I think, here he is walking on the coals here. And look how beautiful. Just their skin, they just radiate. They're glowing. They're just glowing, just glowing. This is where he's showing how he brushes his teeth. And he uses a coconut. He shows him ripping into this coconut. I mean, it would just, normally it would be like your gingival tissue would be bleeding. He was just, and he's scrubbing his teeth with the skin of that. Amazing. But think about it. Think of the antimicrobial components that we hear about in coconut. It's so ancestral, so ancestral. It was just remarkable to see what they've got this wisdom.
That's how
And here he is.
brush our teeth in the village, asking the skins of a coconut.
Isn't that remarkable?
Oh my God.
Oh, this. Oh, wow.
This is unbelievable.
Isn't it amazing? It's just
Wow.
amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Did you try that?
Yes, but it was very invigorating. And I do it sometimes. I mean, if I see a coconut here at the store, I'll just say, I just want to just because I know it now, and it's fun to do things like that. But I do mostly what the Maasai do, so which I'll show you in a minute. This is what has become my go-to now, because their teeth were just, oh. So anyway, again, in Vanuatu, it was so amazing when we went to the store. Yes, palm oil was prevalent. However, my first go-to thing is to go look at their fish, because they all said that they can't afford the fresh fish, but they had a huge section of tinned fish with spring water. The other stores didn't. And the people in this region were so fit and trim. There was not a lot of obesity. In Samoa, almost every person was obese. It was shocking to see. We went and we sat in and I just said, Chris, let's just sit here and just watch. I just want to see. And we sat for quite a while, and we kept watching and watching, and they were all so just hobbling around. It was so sad because recently they were so healthy, but now they're one of the most, they have the highest percentage of diabetes. It's just shocking, you know, to see that, to go from ancestral living and then to westernized, and this is what's happening. It's shocking. And I noted with the children were very thin looking, but once the girls hit puberty, they really started blowing up. They really started getting very large. The boys stayed thin until mid-20, about 23, 24. And then we started seeing their weight going on. So I don't know if it's hormonal for the girls. I don't know what was going on, but it was very interesting to see that happening. The next one, we were supposed to go to the island of Tanna, which I was so excited because there's a very small tribe living there. And in this one, you'd have to take a very small little plane to get there as well. But that whole week, they kept canceling the flights and we couldn't get there. So I was so disappointed. There was one flight that said they would have taken us, but it was so tiny. Chris was not hip on that. He goes, I'm not big on that small of a plane. I was like, I'll go alone. But I stayed back, so I didn't go. But one day I will go back myself to Tanna. Then we went to Fiji. Chris got very sick on the plane there. There was a man sitting next to him who was coughing. And I kept saying, oh no, I hope that that's not something bad. And he caught it. And so he stayed back and I went on my own and toured Fiji. This is the settlement I went to in this region. It was the first Fijian settlement that was built a couple of thousand years ago. And so I wanted to see, are they still living ancestrally? Now, if you look what this arrow is, there's a person standing out here and they're collecting the clams and the oysters and so forth. And I just thought, oh, how neat to be able to go out and do that every day. That would be beautiful. So I noticed as soon as we pulled up, I noticed that they're no longer in their huts anymore. It's very much become contemporary. And every person I met was either overweight or obese, And I was going to take pictures, but I just felt it's not, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So I'm not going to show those pictures. But again, it was sad to see. And I asked the women that I was spending most of the time with, I said, you know, do you use seed oils? And they were so proud to tell me that they were, because I think in their minds, again, they're thinking it's great. I said, well, what kind? And they said, soybean. I said, soybean. And they go, why? And so I explained to them, I tried to give them a little education, but then they said, but we also use mustard seed. And I said, well, mustard seeds, it's better. It's between like about a 12 to 15 linoleic acid. But I said, just go back to using coconut, you know, milk and those things. Go back to ancestral living, you know. And they were so appreciative of the information I shared with them because they didn't know. And again, they had the small little shacks all everywhere near all the locations where the people were trying to live ancestrally. And again, notice the oil, soybean. Then I said to my guide, I said, I know that there is a place here where I could go and talk with a monk. And I said, I've always wanted to see, what do monks really eat? And so he said, let's go. So we went there. I didn't know they would speak to me. I didn't know. And here he is. This is priest or monk Deepak. And this is one of his associates. And he was my age. I'm 62. He's right about my age. And look how lean he is. Now, this is how his day is. I would be starving living on this diet. He gets up every morning at 4:30. He starts the day with a cup of warm water because he feels that flushes the toxins and it balances his body. After morning prayer, he'll eat an orange. Then for lunch, he will have either white rice, dal. Now, dal is like a lentil that has been, the outer coating has been taken off, and it's very healing. When I was vegan and I was very, very sick, and I would eat a lot of dal to try to help to heal. And then and then he'll have yogurt. I think this is a saving grace, the yogurt, because the cow, they revere the cow and the milk, and he would take care of the cows during the day. He said it was a very important part of his day. But that yogurt, I think, is a big piece to where he's getting, you know, the K2 and all the important fat soluble vitamins he needs. Then at 3 p.m., he has 1 cup of black tea. For dinner, his raw tea, flour pudding with curry, beans, okra, eggplant. Again, and I said, aren't you hungry? He said, no. And then at 11:30, he'll have another cup of warm water, and then it starts all over again the next day. So that's his diet. But he looked very much to me, very much like a Maasai, very lean, thin, trim, but not eating a lot. But he does, so I can't say he's vegan. he's got the milk, the dairy in there, that piece is there, which I think is a very key to his health. I do. This was the biggest wall of seed oils I saw in any of it was mostly all soybean. There was a small, I have a video of this too. There was just a small section of the mustard seed, but it was, I could not believe how much soybean oil was in this region. And the people were quite large in Fiji, those who were living there, not the tourists, but the Fijians who are still living there. Yeah, it's definitely infiltrated there. So again, it's the same thing here. Soybean is 53% LA, canola, 21%, mustard, 12 to 15. I think we're just better off just eating as our ancestors eat, which you'll see more when we get to Africa. This is what happened to us. Everyone says, oh my gosh, you live such a glamorous life. No, it's far from glamorous.
I saw that photo about your legs and I thought, oh.
It was, I mean, because I have to tend to my land and there's always poison ivy. So I get poison ivy. This was worse. I don't know. A lot of the locals kept saying, is it just mosquito bites? And I said, it was the burning, the itching, the pain. It was just horrendous. And so, Chris was putting some salve on my legs, and because if I touched it, I was so afraid, what's with poison ivy? I'm going to spread it all over me. And he goes, well, I'm not allergic to poison ivy, so I can touch it. And I thought, what if it's scabies? I mean, we just didn't know what it could be because there's so many things you can get when you're there. We didn't know, but it took about a month to go away. And I don't really have a lot of scarring left from that. So that wasn't too bad. So with Chris, he had the injured knee. Then I had the skin thing that happened the whole time. Then I had ongoing diarrhea. Chris then came down with severe lung infection. And then I lost part of my hearing in my left ear because of the constant flying that we were doing up and down. It's slowly coming back, but not completely. But I'm just grateful that I've got one ear that I can hear from. So it's not, and we didn't even live with the tribes. We were, I'm budget minded. So we were staying in some low budget places, that you might see a rat here and there, you might see, who knows what. And so we weren't living like I was in Africa. And that was my dream. Chris, he's not one that wants to live right there because, as he says, roughing it to him is being in the Holiday Inn. And when you see what I had to deal with in Africa, most of you would probably say I could never do that. So here we go. Now we head to Africa.
Right. Let's go. If you can just stop the screen share.
Sure.
I'll ask you a few questions before we move to the
Absolutely.
expedition. Okay, so you noticed a lot of seed oils have obviously penetrated into their sort of diet. How about sugar? Other than like processed sugar, other than the sugar from potatoes and fruits.
I did not see them. It's the fruit and even the fruit. It didn't seem, because when I was in Vanuatu and I was with the people, the tribe there, and I said, what would be a typical day of eating for you? And it was interesting because, again, they were much more robust as they're aging, their teeth, everything was, he said their main food, 50% would be fish. So every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner was fish. And I said, about how much? And he was showing, there's a video y'all can see there. It's about like the portion of a hand, a small fish, he said. And then they would have that for breakfast with maybe taro. So taro is like a sweet potato. And then at lunch, they'd have that again, fish with taro. And then at night, fish with maybe a banana. So he's getting plenty of protein, fat, beautiful fats and so forth. They're getting their fat soluble vitamins. They're getting a lot of wonderful nutrients and also a ton of minerals in their plants. Now, then we've got everyone who's concerned about the toxins and the oxalates in the sweet potatoes. And I struggle with that because I've had a lot of problems, and I worked so close with Sally Norton when I was vegan for decades, and she helped me to get off of being a vegan. And then I worked with her and Paul Saladino to become a carnivore for a year. And so I realized how I was just so filled with oxalates and all the other poisons I had been ingesting for so long. And so I've been asking myself and researching this over and over, how can these tribes, and even in Africa, many of them live heavily on these high oxalate tours, including the Hadzabe. And this is my belief. I believe that we are, because of how we are living in terms of the water that is coming out of our faucets is loaded with chemicals And every time if you're swallowing your tap water, that's killing off your gut microbiome. We've got glyphosate everywhere. Everywhere. I've been trying so hard to keep myself away from all toxins for most of my life. And I'm always doing blood work on myself to test myself. And I had my oxalate level tested and it came back very high. And here I don't use any chemicals. I don't consume any, I don't think I'm good, but we're breathing it in wherever we go. Even again, organic food, they do use pesticides, they use chemicals, and it's now allowed. And so I believe our gut microbiome is a piece to this. I believe that when I became a vegan and was no longer getting the calcium that I needed, I was not able to flush because calcium helps to usher the oxalates out of our body. However, but then I take that theory and I go, but wait, but they don't consume. There was no dairy used at all in the Pacific Islands. They do not consume dairy. And so the only thing I'm thinking is, and when I was there, I felt it. There's no chemicals. The EMFs, I think EMFs are very destructive to our bodies as well. And I think it's just horrible what it's doing. It's so pure and clean. Their food is so pristine that I believe that their gut microbiome, that they've got, I can't remember, it's formigin, I don't know, it's a special microbe that lives in many people who are very healthy that actually will degrade oxalates and remove it from the body. And I know I've had myself tested. I don't have that. And so I'm wondering if those of us who are living in our world, we are struggling with this oxalate piece. Number one, we're eating way too many. I mean, we're making these, you know, if you're vegan and you're making all your smoothies and all, you know, I'm going to drink pounds and pounds of kale and all this stuff. Oh my gosh, I was doing that. It's too much. It's overload. You don't see these people doing that. They would eat, you know, two sweet potatoes a day, maybe, or taro or cassava, you know, and then they're doing the other, you know, like cabbage and things like that, that they're eating boiled cabbage and so forth. But I do wonder if that's another piece to this. But again, to see the difference between the two big tribes I spent with, I found that the tribe that was consuming the fish, and they said sometimes chicken, but mostly it is the fish, their health, they just seemed aging beautifully, robust. The other group was aging rapidly. Their teeth was not in good condition. But again, they smoked heavily. The tribe in Vanuatu did not smoke at all. So there's a difference in lifestyle, you know, but movement wise, they were all very, very active. And that was very important.
And also the social part, right?
Absolutely.
That community around them.
And that's something I'm writing.
Which we don't. So.
And I'm writing huge about that because I found that when I was, especially in Africa, I could not believe the love. Everyone thinks of the Maasai as just being the warriors, and which they are. But the community, we'll talk when we get there, it was the most profound thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think that that's part of why they are so majestic and so pristine. It was just, and you see, I know because you've seen it all. It was just unbelievable. And anyone who hasn't seen the videos and heard us talking, it was just overwhelming to see them. And yet I could sense it here with these tribes, but because I wasn't living though, and so many people who say that they're going to see the tribes, they were there. If you don't live with them 24/7, then you don't know, because you don't become part of them. You don't see and hear everything that they're doing. And it was profound. It was absolutely, I felt I was a Maasai. They accepted me as a Maasai. They kept telling me that I was their white Maasai, and that they want to adopt me. So I'm probably going to go back and become a Maasai.
And it was powerful because we also could live it.
Yes.
From this side of the screen, we could live that experience with you. I mean, it wouldn't have been as effective if you came back home and then you published a paper of 80 pages on it.
Yes.
It doesn't have the same impact.
So it did mean a lot to you. So it did. I knew that you were always there, and I thought it must be powerful to you. And those who kept showing up, I thought I've got people that it mattered to, you know, and so you could feel it.
I put my notifications on. So
I
every
saw you. Every time I can see, I go, oh my gosh, I can say hi to you.
it would beep,
And then-
and then it's 11 p.m. here, and I go,
Oh.
never mind. I'll
Oh,
join.
you were so
11
beautiful.
p.m.
Oh my gosh, thank you. But it meant everything to me. I'm telling you, because I was scared. I was very, very scared the entire time, even though I had the most amazing team with me. But it was very, very scary because you're living in the bush. You have no protection. There are cobras, there are pythons, there are wild animals, there are just, you don't know, poisonous insects. And you have to go out, and we'll talk as we go through the slides. You'll see. I'll wait till we go through the slides.
Let's go. Let's have a look where
All right.
exactly we went in Africa. Do you have a
Absolutely.
map?
Oh, I have our map, so let's bring that up again. Share. Okay, so here we are. Or first, these are the tribes that we're going to be visiting, and so there's 5, but 7 in all. So we started with the Hadzabe, which was 1. Then we did 2 Datogas. One was a blacksmith tribe, and one is the pastoralist tribe. The pastoralists live very much like the Maasai. Then we did the Iraq. The Iraq are the agro-pastoralists. They will grow crops, and they also have livestock. Then we did 2 Maasai. This is the Maasai that was Mateo, who was my lead guide. That was his family. And then, hold on here. And then, yeah. And then we did another Maasai tribe. I wanted to compare and see if they're all living the same. And there was just only a slight difference with this second tribe when they do their chai tea. The chai tea from Mateo's tribe, they totally use just the bark in it. The other tribe would use real tea. They were putting actual tea in it. So that was the only difference I saw. They were very adamant. They want to try to live as much to this Maasai life as they possibly can, which we'll talk when we get there. And my final tribe I lived with, which would be number 7, was the Sanjo Batemi tribe. So here we go. This is where we were. And so Kenya, right next, bordering on Kenya, we're in Arusha. And so I flew into Kilimanjaro airport, and then Mateo and Tembo met me at the airport, and we stayed overnight because I flew in very, very, very late. And then we got up early the next morning, and we had a very, very long drive. So again, we had to drive from Arusha, and it was about a 12-hour drive, I believe. And we went to the Hadzabe first. But this is the important thing to notice. A lot of the land has been taken away by the government because of greed. And it's all for tourism, and it's all for big agriculture. And so their ancestral land is being taken away, and they're being brought together. And so you've got 2 pastoralist tribes, the Datoga and the Iraq, living next to the Hadzabe, who are hunters and gatherers. And so you'll see during a couple of the slides, you'll see how can they be hunting where you've got a whole bunch of cattle being grazed with shepherds there. That means where the wild animals going to go. The wild animals are not going to be there when you've got bells and all these, donkeys making all their sounds and everything. It's going to be almost impossible to hunt. So for this specific tribe that I lived with, there may be other Hadzabes that are maybe having more success, not this Hadzabe tribe. They were so desperate to find food. And it was heart-wrenching. So that's where we're going to first start. And then when we did this, both Maasai, they're over here, and then the Sanjo tribe. So we had to kind of another big long trip to get to those guys. So we'll start with the Hadzabe. That was the first tribe. Here we are, my team. This is Maneno. He is not the Maasai. I think he's from the Irabu, I think that his tribe is called, and they're agro-pastoralists as well. They do fruit and vegetables and meat as well. But then this is Mateo. He was my lead guide, and this is Tembo. They're both Maasai. This is our vehicle, our mighty Land Rover, and it was amazing. I don't know what we would have done without this. This Land Cruiser was unbelievable, and it got us through things. The roads were unbelievable. I thought the roads were bad in the Pacific Islands. Oh, I thought my neck was like, oh, a couple times. I said, oh, golly. So here we are. This is our first campground, and this is where the boys slept. And this is my tent. These are the Hadzabe. They hadn't had anyone living there before, so we were first. And so they had to clear the land for us. So there's a video on my social media where you can see them digging out the roots and the stumps and things that were there. And they made space for us. I was so grateful to them. They were just so gracious and so welcoming. Again, meeting having someone who looks like me. I'm so different than they are. And my hair, that was a big thing because I work out, and my muscles, they didn't understand, what are these? How did you get that way? Why do you feel the need? And we talked a lot about those things. They felt it was not unnecessary. And we'll talk about that as we move on. This was my bathroom every day. This is not a luxury hotel. I had my toilet paper with me, and then Menendo, who was my chef, he would warm up some water for me and put the water in a little pan. And so I would go out and find a bush, and you just have to hope someone else is not there at the same time. And you have to be able to squat. So if anyone's going to want to go and do this, you have to know how to squat, because that's how you're going to go to the bathroom. There's nothing to sit on. There's nothing to flush. There's nothing, they use leaves. They use leaves to wipe with. I was going to do this, but then I felt, because I'm so sensitive, the last thing I need right now is to have some kind of a rash or a breakout down there. So I thought, next time I go back, I will definitely try that, but I'm going to stick with my toilet paper. And because I have celiac disease, even my toilet paper, I have to have my own special brand that doesn't have any kind of plants like gluten in it, because many of the products do. And so I had to travel with my own that I know I don't have reactions to. So I had my toilet paper, and then the water. No soap. I would just splash water on my face and kind of wash off my arms. I couldn't wash my hair, so I would just braid my hair, and that kind of thing. Very quick, and that's how I would take my shower and going to the bathroom. That's out in the bush. Again, I had such a fear every time I was out there, and in the nighttime before I go to bed, to go out there by yourself. You don't know. I was literally, sometimes I felt like I just want to cry, because could a cobra, anything come up, and they're so fast. The fear was unbelievable that I was feeling all the time, but I knew that God was watching over, and I was going to get through whatever would happen. So here is a beautiful village. It's, when I walked upon it, I just could not believe. And they live this way. This is their life. You will see that they go out into the, but there's a village about 10 to 12 miles away that they will walk to once a week. And they'll find plastic and bags and things, and they will bring them back and use that to plug up the areas in their huts, so it won't, if it rains, it kind of protects them. And I thought, how precious is that? They're just trying to find whatever they can find. They just, it was just so beautiful. So beautiful. So we went on a hunt with them, and we spent the whole day. And it was, again, there's videos to see this. It was just so sad. We would see the hyena tracks. We would see, they won't eat hyena, but we'd see the tracks. We'd see the antelope tracks, but there were none to be seen. You could hear the bells, and you could hear the cows and the donkeys and everything. And I was like saying to Mateo, how in the world are wild animals going to be here? They're just hearing, there's too much noise. It's not peace and quiet anymore like it was. It's not. So it was killing me. They only hunt with bow and arrows. They do not have anything else. And so they kept shooting at any bird that they would see. And finally, this is Pele, he got a red-billed hornbill. And I was so happy. And there's a video of this whole thing. A lot of the videos I share are very graphic. And I will always say warning. I will always tell you, I was not ready for what they were going to do. The bird was injured. It was not dead. And in this picture here, and there's a video of him, he takes the bird and he puts it in his head and he crushes the skull. And then a lot of them, I cannot pronounce their names because they've got the click language. I couldn't begin to. He took it and put it in like a little belt he had on until they're ready to cook it. So they prepared their fire and they cooked it because it was too small to take back for the rest of the tribe. And we were walking like at least 15 miles that day. And so it was just something for us to eat. And we each had this little piece. Again, their meat is very tough. It's not, everyone, it's carnivores and stuff. It's aged and all this stuff. Aged meat causes histamine problems. I never had a histamine problem until I became a carnivore because I was eating all this meat and I didn't understand that, especially like organs and so forth. These are all very high histamine foods and aged meat. So then I started realizing I had to get fresh meat. And so that's all I consume now is fresh meat. And that's what they don't have histamine problems. We talked about this. They don't, because their meat is so fresh. It doesn't have time for bacteria to grow or anything. So again, ancestral eating. It's different. It's totally different. Everyone talks about, oh, you can have honey every day. No. And they see the Hadzabe eat a lot of honey. How can you if there isn't any honey? Okay. They don't store things. They don't do that. They just live for the moment. And so I'm thinking we're going to go get some honey. but I'm not seeing any flowers. It's not the season for flowers. And I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher. I taught. This is what I used to teach, is science. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So we go in here, and this is what there's two miles apart, but we first find this first nest, and it's in the ground, and there's bees everywhere. So I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be loaded. I can't wait to see the honey. I can't wait to see. They get in there, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. Hold that thought. Then we have a big, huge baobab tree, and there's a ton of flies up there, bees flying around. I think, oh my gosh, there's another there. Wait till you see what happens with the two hives. What in between, hold that thought, they make, while you're there, they're making these pegs that you're going to put into the tree because there's no branches. And they climb up these pegs, and it's enormously high. It's so high. And he's smoking it out. And there's videos of all this. And he's literally swarmed with bees. And when he came down, he had stingers all over him. And I'm pulling them out. I'm like, oh my gosh, Pele. I'm like, oh my golly. And I wish I so bad I could have videotaped it, but I'm too busy pulling out the stingers out of him. It didn't affect him a bit. Didn't affect him a bit. But this is what they found. Nothing. The one that was towards the ground, it's a brand new hive, but there was no honey yet, because there's no pollen. There's no nectar at this time of the year. So everything's dry. This was out on the top of the baobab tree. It was an old one. There's nothing. And so I said to them, but we've been told that you have it all the time. They said, no, we don't. It's seasonal. So we've been misinformed about a lot of things. Nature's going to give us what we need when we need it. And it's very important to think about. I don't think we're supposed to be having a lot of certain things all the time when we need it.
Not supposed to be having a lot of food all the time.
They did, and that's key. They do not, none of the tribes. I mean, I was very thankful. Everyone says, well, what about the Maasai? Wait till you hear. I was very thankful that we had my chef with me, because they were so afraid I wouldn't be able to handle a lot of food. So he was aware of my needs, and we had what I could eat. So even though I had some moments of struggles, but I had to have someone there to give me nutrients that I wouldn't get really sick on. This is how they drink their water. It doesn't matter what they come upon. It doesn't matter what the condition is. They drink it. Now, in research, and I've always qualmed about this, they say it's because they have such a high fiber diet, that's why they have, of all the people in the world, the most diverse microbiome. Remember, this is the last of the hunters and gatherers in the world. And the sad thing is that they're becoming extinct. And this is what I'm trying to teach the world now after being there. There are a total of about 800, maybe 1,000 tops, but half of them have left. And they are now living like a westernized life. They're more contemporary. There's about only 400 tops living ancestrally. And because their land is being taken away, it's like they're being forced out. And they are some of the last that speak this beautiful click language. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever, and we're going to lose them if we don't do something. And I know many people say to me, yeah, but since we've got enough problems in our world, in our country, let's focus on us and not them. I don't know. I just being with them. I'm part Native American, and I want to do whatever I can to help my people. We've had our land taken away too, living on reservations. And it's just, it's heart-wrenching. But I believe that their gut microbiome is not just because of the plants that they're eating. It's because they live very dirty, which we're supposed to. We're too clean. All this, sanitizer, antimicrobial things that we're putting on our bodies, we're washing and washing and washing. They don't. And we're designed, our body is designed so perfectly to be able to handle this. Our immune system, we need to boost that immune system, and they can handle drinking this. I was so close to drinking it. I wanted so badly, because I collect my own spring water here where I live. And people I've given my spring water to people, and like Chris, when he was here, I gave him spring water, and he got sick because his body isn't accustomed to the microbiome. There's germs. I'm sure that there's animals, who knows what they're doing in the spring water that I'm consuming, but I can handle it because I've been doing it over 20 years. Same thing with these guys. And their knives that they cut with are filthy. They aren't washing it. They cut something and then they put it away, or have a dog wipe it on the dog's coat, whatever they're doing, wipe it on the ground. It's never washed. Same with the Maasai. And so it's germs, and they're bombarded with them, and their body is so strong and powerful. We have to get back to that. But because we are killing so much of our gut microbiome with the toxins in our environment, the water that comes out of our sink. You know, if it's not from a well, then you're getting, it's got chlorine and who knows what else in that water, thousands of chemicals in them. We've got pesticides that we're ingesting. We're killing off our gut microbiome. We've got to get that back. It's key. It's key. Fruit. I couldn't wait. I've been studying their fruit. And we came upon this. Now remember, Mateo I just put out a video the other day with this. Mateo is a Maasai, and this is a Hadzabe. They couldn't wait to pick this fruit. It's the wild plum. It looks like a cherry tomato, right? I go, oh my God, it looks like a cherry tomato. They peel the skin. They know not to eat the skin. So therefore, it must be that the skin has some kind of plant toxins because they don't want to eat the skin. And then there's a pit on the inside of it. It is not sweet. It is extremely sour and bitter. It's not something I would run to. I will tell you that. But this is their favorite. Mateo was like, oh my gosh, I just love this. It's my favorite. The Hadzabe. We've been told that the Hadzabe, it's the baobab is their favorite fruit. And I asked them, and they said, no, it's the wild plum, of course, in their language. In Maz, this is called ngame. And so interesting, a lot of things that we're told is not what it is. This is very seasonal. This is only out a few months during the year. It is not all year long, very seasonal. And they aren't going to go look rushing for it, but if they come upon it, they will take a few. You know, maybe 7 or 8 tops, and that's it. But it's loaded with potassium and vitamin C, very high. And it's also a good source of sodium, magnesium, phosphorus, and calcium. So this is important. We need to think about this, guys. And everyone talks about the Maasai being, you know, they do. But again, it's not every day. It's not every day. So this is another piece that was important to know. Now look at this is the pastoralists that are living on the hunting grounds. Here are their cattle coming down right here. All their bells are ringing. And I'm like, my gosh, no wonder they can't, there's no animals. The wild animals are being scared away. It was unbelievable to see. And there was nothing. We went back and all they had gotten was that bird, which we consumed. And we had a couple berries. On our way back, there was this Iraq family living there. And I'm like, the boys go in there. This is the hunters. I'm like, what are we doing? And they bring them out fresh milk. The Hadzabe have never consumed dairy. But now this tribe is incorporating it. And I asked them, I said, do you like it? And they're like, yeah, we really like it. It's food for them. But it's going to be interesting to watch this tribe. The longer they consume it, I wonder if it's going to change, you know, how they are, how their health is. It's amazing to see, but they really love it. I'm not sure if the women are getting as much as they're getting. Possibly if the women, because they stay more towards because we're so far away. We are so far away. You know, we're at least 10 miles away from the tribe. So I don't know if when the women when it comes time for the dry season, if they're going to have to walk that far to get water, which is probably most likely that they would be able to get milk from this tribe or the other tribes. But it was interesting to see that the men are having milk in their diet. Very interesting. So we get back to the tribe, and I'm heartbroken. They have nothing for the tribe. What are they going to eat today, aside from their tubers and some of the greens that they had found? I said, guys, we have to go. We have to go find food. They're like, where? And I said, let's go to all the different tribes in the region and ask if they'll sell me either a goat or a lamb. And they're like, they said, well, okay, we'll go. So at first I want to take them out to lunch. They were starving. So we stopped, we had to go about maybe 10, 12 miles to a small village, and their restaurants, they just have fresh slaughtered meat hanging. I wish we had this. And you eat outside. So I go in and pick the cuts of meat that we want, and they cook them right there for you. And then they bring out this platter of just all the meat on it. And they were just eating away, eating away, eating away. But interestingly enough, they said to me, can we have some soda? And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm a researcher, a health. And I said, the day I would ever want you to drink that. I said, no. So at first they were I said, I will buy you spring water. So Kilimanjaro, but it's in plastic. It was not in glass. It's all we could have there. And, but look at their teeth. Look at these smiles. Are they not gorgeous? And they do brush their teeth exactly how the Maasai do. And I'll show you that in a minute. So anyway, so we drove around and we kept driving and we kept asking tribe after tribe, and they all kept saying no. And they're like, we're not going to be. I said, I'm praying. I said, God will bring one to us. We stopped finally at this tribe. It's a wife. The wife was Iraq and the husband was Datoga. They married together, which that tribe actually does that. And they were willing to sell me an 8-month-old lamb. And so I purchased the lamb, and here it is. We took it back to the tribe. Mateo, this is Mateo, and there's 2 graphic, very, very graphic videos I just posted, I think last week, that show how they slaughter. Mateo wanted to show the Hadzabe how the Maasai slaughter an animal, to teach them how to really make use of all of the food that's there. And they were so inquisitive. They really wanted to see what a Maasai would do. And it was so neat to watch. I mean, it was very difficult for me because it's the first time I've seen an animal, aside from that bird, have its life taken. And I struggled. But once I saw the end product of them sitting like this and eating. Now, I want you to picture this. This is our flashlight that is lighting up. It's normally completely black. Just the very small flicker of the fire is giving them the light at nighttime. Their night vision is unbelievable. And I've researched this for years. And they've talked about, over the years, all of the tribes that they've studied throughout for over 70,000 years, they know that they didn't have any eye problems. The myopia was a little bit, was only at 3%, but I could see and I asked them all, I said, can you see really well? And they said, oh yeah, but at nighttime, I'm tripping over everything. And they're walking as if they can see everything. They go hunting at nighttime. It's remarkable. And again, we have to, and I put that out today. That was something I posted this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said this, think about if they had the eye problems that we're all struggling with. Would they even be in existence, because they need to have such keen eyesight to be able to see their predators and where their next meal's coming from. Many of us can't see a distance, or we can't see it close. So many things. They're pristine. God doesn't make mistakes. If we eat, and I think that our screens are a big problem. And I've written about this as well. But anyway, look at this. Look at them. When I saw them, the look of appreciation. This is our food. This is our substance. They are eating with the ugali, though. This is the ugali right here in both of their pans, because they don't have a lot of food anymore. They have incorporated ugali. Ugali is corn maize that is made with water. And this is what they're eating. I'm hoping that they're getting this from the Iraq tribe that gave them the milk. I'm pretty sure that they probably are, because a lot of, we'll talk to them when I get there. I'm afraid if it's a GMO, that again, that's gonna be another problem for them. But they love this because they said it's food. It's food. And they were scraping it, they're taking and they're putting it into the, and I asked them in some of the live chats, I said, have you noticed a difference since adding ugali, since you're changing your diet? And they said, yes, we're getting sick. And I thought that was interesting. But on another side, I have to be a researcher. I have to look at both sides. But we have cultures who have lived for centuries, generations, eating grains. I think it's the kind of grain. I think it's also our DNA. I have celiac disease. I can't eat grains. It'll kill me. And I think that depending on our genetics, our circumstance, the kind of plants that we're eating and what they've been grown in and so forth, I think all that matters. And if you have tribes who have never consumed a lot of grains and all of a sudden they're putting it in there, is that causing havoc? I don't know, because all the tribes have said this. All of the 7 I lived with, they have said since they've changed their diet and are adding in this ugali and these plants, they are noticing their health is suffering. I thought that was quite remarkable. Oh, again, I just wanted to show you. So here, this is how the Maasai cook their meat. They don't put it right on the flame. They do it on a skewer. And so this is the ribs, this is a leg, and this is the liver. And they just slowly, very slowly cook it. And again, their meat is very tough. It is not, aged. And anyone who thinks they have to have this melting in your mouth meat, they don't eat melt in the mouth. That's why they have these jaws. I was literally sitting there trying to get through this stuff. They would power through it. I mean, I have a video of me literally trying to put my camera in the mouth, watching Pele he's chewing the bones and crushing them with his mouth. I'm like, look at that. Look at him go. And I was struggling. They were laughing at me because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me forever to get through this one piece. And their jaws are so powerful because they eat, their meat is so, and that's, I believe, one of the key components why their teeth and their jaws are so amazing. And they do not one braces. I mean, they have every, it was, again, I was just in awe of how their structure, it was just beautiful. And a lot of people say, but why are they missing teeth? because that's their rituals. You will notice in many of the tribes they're missing 2, maybe 1, depending on what it is. It's because that shows strength and power. And so when they're young children, around the age of 4 or 5, and those permanent teeth have come in the Maasai especially, and even the Datoga, they will remove the lower teeth with a knife. Without any painkiller, you are standing there and you do not shed a tear. And even the girls do. Some tribes, it may be the upper tooth, and they think that's a sign of beauty. But also the key thing is, which I'll show you, I'll wait till we get there. It's so much I have to tell you, oh my golly. So here we have now the women. So now the women are going to show you what they do. And so I'm thinking, oh, we're going to go gathering, we're going to go find the roots and tubers and so forth. And we did. And of course, there's a video on this as well. And this is one of their favorites. It's called the shumako. They can eat it raw, but it's very, very, very fibrous, extremely fibrous. But their favorite way to do it is to roast it on the fire for about 5 minutes. And you can see in the video that so I'm squatting there with them and they're giving me the pieces. And it was so, the water content and the mineral content when I was chewing on this, coming out of it was unbelievable, delicious. But there's no way I could have swallowed it. There was the fibrous, I was like, you could hear us chewing around. You know, but you could just see. And she said, this is their favorite. This is what they prize. And I'm thinking, but you're not really getting, how are you going to feel sustained? You know, I would be so hungry. But this is they know they're getting so many nutrients out of this tuber. It was amazing to watch them, but it was unbelievable. I was so excited to try that. These are the greens. And I said, you eat these raw? And they said, no, we boil them. So they do boil them. Again, I think that removes some of the toxins in the plants that we see.
So were
they're
they
also
Suzanne, were they eating the whole tuber or just
they peel the skin
nutrients
just
and
inside, they peel it off and they just eat the inside skin, the fibers on the inside, but then they just chew it and you spit it out and that's it. But they're not only gatherers, they're hunters, and they hunt rodents. And so they're looking for rats, mice, moles. The day that we were out, I couldn't believe how fast they are to get them, but they only found 1. And I said, is it like this? And I said, sometimes we'll find 15. And I said, well, what do you do with them? And they said, we cook them over the fire. You know? And so I think whoever finds it, I think that this woman, I think she was like in her 70s. And I think that she would eat it. Now, people are asking, why are they dressed like they are? Where's their native clothing? A lot of the missionaries and the Catholic charities and things will come and bring them clothing that has been given by other people. And so a lot of the clothing comes from that as well. But they also make jewelry. And in the honey season, they will actually go and try to sell. They'll walk 10, 15 miles to go to the markets and so forth and try to sell to get money so that they can buy and go to thrift stores and get clothing. They will get more of their beads to make their necklaces, but they also drink alcohol and they want to buy alcohol. And so I asked them about that. I said, you know, why do you drink alcohol? And they said, because we like it. And I said, are you sad? I said, do you drink? Because, I mean, for me, I'm thinking, are they drinking because they're depressed because of life? They said, we love our life. They said, we have no worries. I said, you don't have worries about finding food? They said, we know we'll find something. They said, we get up and we live for the moment. And the peace that they feel is just, it's amazing. There's just such peace in every tribe. I don't see anger, hostility, greed, contempt, bitterness, jealousy. There's none. It doesn't exist. It's the most peaceful thing I've ever, it's that sense of peace. And I think that's another pillar that we don't experience here. And wait till you hear what I tell you about the Maasai, what their belief is. It's powerful, such wisdom. Again, here's the shacks. The little shacks that are everywhere and usually within walking distance of many of the tribes. And they will have the candy, the chips, the oil. Look at the size of the container that was there. They will have those there. And so it's infiltrating. It is infiltrating there. But on one of our lives, and you probably were there, and I asked them about this, and they were adamant. No, we do not want to eat processed food. And they said, some of us have left, and we thought it would be better, but we came back because we were getting so sick. And I thought, wow, that was so powerful. It was so, so powerful. And I did take their blood glucose. I did not do this in the Pacific Islands, but on my own. When I'm on my own, I can make my decisions and do what I want to do. And so I just thought, I'm going to do this my way. And so I did. I was doing blood glucose, and it was amazing. Most of them had beautiful blood glucose levels. I mean, they were right, between 70s and 80s. Some of them had, the women, many of the women, and a lot of tribes were in the 60s, and they had already eaten. So I'm wondering if, some of us are saying that would be, you're in a state of, you're low in sugar, but they had already eaten. And so they were, I thought, well, gee, maybe ancestrally, the levels can be lower and we're still in a pristine state. It doesn't have to be exact, but there were some that were higher, but then they later told me that they forgotten that they had a fruit or something to eat and they had forgotten. And I was like, that would tell me why your reading was up a little bit higher. So I don't know. And in some of them, I thought, is it because they consumed alcohol the evening before? And that would also alter the levels. Here again, the Pringles. So their prime, again, sunflower oil is huge in Africa. And notice sunflower oil in the Pringles can is the first. It's not palm oil like we found in the Pacific Islands. Isn't it interesting? So no matter what region you live in, Pringles and all of the junk food will modify their ingredients to what is the preferred oil that they have available. I thought that was really, really interesting. Very interesting. This is the Datoga tribe. Now, remember, we went to two different ones. One is the Pastoas was the second tribe. The first tribe is the blacksmiths. So we'll first visit the blacksmiths. Here they are. Their huts are much different now. They're going to have more of the flat roof. They still have the grass on the top, but the walls are made, and the women usually make the huts. So they're going to have sticks and make log type things on the inside, and they're going to have mud and dung from the cows. They will be mixed together. And I was wondering, I wonder if they'll have a smell. It didn't. It was just very earthy. And I thought it was to me, it was a clean smell. It was just very natural, very ancestral. And you can hear in a lot of my videos, oh my goodness, it's so ancestral. It was just beautiful. It was just very lovely, very clean. And again, I was always saying I could easily live like this. I could easily live like this. These are the boys. They're in their 30s. Their grandfather taught them how to be blacksmiths. And they're so needed with the tribes. I didn't realize this. I did not realize until you go and experience it. And I had some of the things here. When you see, like if you saw some of the knives that they would have been using, any of the tools, the arrow tips, like here, the arrow tip here, these are made by the Datoga. And there's only a few of them. There's only a few of these Datoga tribes in the region that are blacksmiths. And so the tribes and anyone, around the villages as well, they come to them to buy the goods, and they find these goods when they'll walk around and they'll find nails and padlocks, and just so they're helping to reuse, recycle products that have been discarded, and they melt them down into beautiful things. And I could not believe. Here they are. So here they've taken a nail and they melted it down to make this. This would be at the end of an arrowhead. Okay. And it would go into an animal. Can you imagine trying to pull that out of an animal? Look at those barbs. And this is so sharp. My fingers get stuck on it. But that was a nail. That was a nail, and it melted down to become this. And you can see his thumb. He lost his thumbnail because when he was pounding it, he slammed his thumb down. And he said, that wasn't fun. I said, I don't think so. And then these are their teeth. This is what their teeth look like. This is their grandfather. He's 102 years old. And I will have a video coming out with him shortly, an interview I did with him. Very sharp, not as pristine as what I saw in the Maasai tribe, but still he could get down on the ground and crawl. I asked all of them, and of course Mateo, because he was the one that had to translate. Some of my questions, he was like, I said, ask him if he can get down and squat when he goes to the bathroom. Mateo's like, I can't believe I'm asking. I said, I know, but I have to know this is important as being a human. And most researchers would never ask this because they don't think like this, but this is how I think. He can. And I said, with any help? None. Imagine being 102 years old. I had my students, young children, who could not squat because they've been sitting, and we are not designed to sit. Chairs are a fairly new invention. They were really created for the royalty. Most people did not have chairs. It's fairly new in homes. And so now we're sitting, and our pelvic region, everything is totally out of line. We're just not living human. We're not living, especially if you can't squat, you wouldn't be able to survive. Because how are you going to go to the bathroom? How are you going to be able to do so much of what they do is squatting and getting to the ground. He can, all of these elders in their hundreds are squatting to go to the bathroom without any help. It's remarkable. His teeth, he's got all of them there. And he was laughing. They're all laughing because I'm like, open your mouth. I want to look. You know? And he was like, but look at them. They're all there. You know, he's only missing the center ones because, like the Maasai, that's what they remove. So the lower centrals. Now, why they do that, and this is brilliant, because if you get sick and you can't open your mouth, kind of like lockjaw, there's certain illnesses you can't open, that's where they will give you their medicine that they make out of plants. It will go between those teeth and they'll squeeze it into those teeth. I thought, really? I never would have thought of that. But they also say it's also a sign of beauty, and it's also to how much pain can you withstand. So there's a purpose for everything they do. Isn't that amazing? But notice his teeth, notice their teeth. Again, their diet. You think that they would be, you know, they're the toga, they're pastoralists. These are not. Because they're working all day long, making their blacksmithing, they no longer have livestock anymore. So they're mostly vegan. Their diet is mostly ugali, which is the corn and water, and the makande, which is the red kidney. Now remember this, the red kidney beans and the maize, which is corn, and they boil that together. And so and I was like, what? I said, you guys are mostly vegan? And I said, don't you consume milk? And he said, well, all we have is a goat. We saw the goat, but we don't really drink a lot of milk anymore either. So I asked the elderly man, 102, and I said, what is the most pristine diet? And he said, blood, milk, and meat. But he's not getting it now because it's no longer there. So I think that's what got him to this point. But now he's, I think, mostly living on plants. So it's taking a toll on his teeth compared to when you compare his dental work to that of the Maasai. So it's amazing to see. But again, pristine, pristine, pristine. Now we're getting ready to go to our next Datoga. These people are living like the Maasai, very much like the Maasai. This is where we're staying here. And again, this place, we're living right among, so I would wake up and there'd be a donkey or something right there. We're right in with the livestock. They're right there with us. And so it was very loud at nighttime, all night long. You're hearing the bells and the donkeys. They're right with you all the time, which it was beautiful, but it was hard for me to get used to. But so you look at the landscape. Again, think about our eyes. They're looking at distance all the time. We're looking out. It was so beautiful, just so beautiful. No matter where I am, whether it's in the Pacific Islands, I was not looking at a screen unless I was, you know, making a video or something, but it was just heavenly, absolutely heavenly to be living like a human. So we get there and they've never had someone living there with them. I'm this woman coming in and I'm wearing pants, of course. All the tribes, look at how she's dressed, you know, look how she looks, you know, what is this? And they're feeling my hair and they're feeling my skin, green eyes, oh, because they've got usually black or, you know, brown eyes. Look at the green eyes. Oh my gosh, you know, look at her muscles, you know, what is this? How do you do this? They're fascinated by that. But I asked them, where's their spring? And so their spring during the wet season, we were there during the wet season, is not too far, maybe half a mile. And so we were going there, but I asked their lead speaker right here. This is Gish, right here, this guy right here. He's probably in his 30s. And, you know, he was speaking. Now, all the tribes, they all had to learn Swahili. There's over 120 tribes in Africa, in Tanzania, and they all speak different languages. But they've made it a law recently that you have to learn Swahili so that you can all communicate. The elders, many of the elders don't because that's before their time. So whenever Mateo was talking to them, he would speak in Swahili and they would always respond in Swahili so they could communicate. And so I asked, you know, is it okay if I take pictures? And he said, no, you can't. He didn't like that. I didn't know if he really was too hip with having me there. And so I just thought, I prayed and I said, what will be, will be. God, it's God's hands. So we're going down and I love to jump. I just jump over things. It's just who I am. And so I saw some bushes. So I'm leaping over the bushes and they're like, what they're saying to Mateo, what is she doing? You know? And so I said, tell them this is what I do. I jump. I said, it makes me feel happy. And I said, do it. So then they started doing it and they were laughing. So I took a picture of Gish doing it and I showed him, he'd never seen himself before. And he's like, I said, that's you. And I said, do it again. And I'll take a movie, a video. So I did it. And this time he's jumping over this massive bush, which I'll be posting soon. And I got it and I showed it. He was like, oh my gosh, more, more, more. So that's how it broke the ice. I was able to then I became one, you know? And so we go down and look how this is only here for a short time. It will dry up, and they're going to have to then walk miles and miles to find water. And so look how she's carrying this. I couldn't believe the weight that she's lifting, put onto her head. And she's balancing it, didn't spill anything. She has like a thing that she's made that helps to support, and so it doesn't hurt her head. But remarkable. You'll notice that the women shave their heads. They all shave their heads. They don't have to wash they don't have a lot of water to wash with. And so it just maintains a simple life. This is how they live, again, very much like the Datoga we just saw, same thing, but look inside. The flies here were intense. There was so many flies, so many mosquitoes. Literally, you could hear on a lot of my my live chats and so forth, they were literally flying into my mouth. There was hundreds and hundreds. I have pictures of the children. There's just flies all over their faces. It's in our food. You know, some people say, "Oh my gosh, how can you eat that?" It is what it is. You know, you're picking up a food and you just kind of brush them off as you're putting it in your mouth. It's rough living. It's not what we're used to. But I found it beautiful. I found it I was so alive there. Yes, afraid, but still alive. He's eating again. They are incorporating ugali, and he's got a bowl of milk. So again, the ugali's down here in the pan, and this fiddlesticks. And this is a bowl of milk they've all got. So they will eat a piece of ugali, and then they will drink the milk. Eat a piece of ugali and drink the milk. When we spoke with the witch doctor or the medicine woman, I always thought of them being as men. This was a woman. She was 102 as well. She was in her hundreds. They guesstimate about 102. She was a little larger. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you saw that live chat. She was very quiet, but she walked. She lived quite a distance away from where we were. And she walked by herself, and she sat down, but very quiet. But her eyes, and I noticed this in a few of the tribe members in this tribe. I noticed it heavily in Samoa. Many of the people, there was like a glaze over their eyes. I'm thinking, are they all getting glaucoma? I couldn't, but her eyes were severe. And so then I didn't say anything. I just kind of whispered to Mateo. I said, there's something not right here. There's something that's affecting their eyes. So I asked the question on the live chat, and you can hear it. And Gish was up in the tree. And I said, when did ugali come in? Have you always had this? And he said, no, he knew exactly 24 years ago. Now, next to the witch doctor, the medicine woman, was her son. He was like in his middle 80s. We're thinking 85 to 88. And he was sitting there. And I said, have you noticed any changes in your health since adding in ugali? And he became very upset. And now all the teens were sitting there as well. They were all there with us. And he was adamant, and he said, I've been telling them and they won't listen. Since we added ugali, our health is failing. And I said, well, what do you want to tell them? Tell them again. And so I said to Mateo, I said, tell them to listen. And he said, we have to go back to meat, milk, and blood. He said, we're getting sick. And then I said, what do you think about beans? Because the other Datoga tribe was eating the beans. And they said, no, beans will kill us. Beans will destroy our eyes. So I don't know if years ago they had tried to incorporate beans and they started noticing a change in their eyes. I don't know. But then as a researcher, I have to stop and say, but there are cultures who live heavily on beans and have pristine health. Again, is it because their DNA, they are accustomed to certain things? Now, I know kidney beans can be deadly. If they are not cooked properly, they will kill you. They are extremely toxic, but they've got to be so soaked, and cooked and cooked and cooked. Because I know I was vegan, and beans were, I was like an expert on beans. They are very dangerous, and they use the red kidney beans. So maybe they had an issue with that. But again, I will never take sides in any, I will only say as a researcher, this is what I see. I will be going to live in Okinawa, in the village of longevity. I want to see with my own eyes. Are they really as pristine? What is their true diet? the same in Greece. I will be doing all of this. I have to know, and I don't want to read it anymore because it's not what I read. It's not the truth. So stay tuned. So yeah, now look what their diet is. 2 meals, they only eat twice a day. Most of the tribes only eat twice a day. The morning, it's usually milk. They now are incorporating ugali. That's a new piece. They will also up to a liter of butter a day per person. They will have men 6 liters of milk, women 4 liters per day. Okay, and it's fascinating. But again, they wish they could go back to just having their traditional diet without the ugali. Here we are again. This is Gish over here. This is right before we were getting ready to do a live. And again, this is when we had just arrived, and they're like, "What is this? What is this? Were you born with this?" You know, it was. Is this how you were born? And no, we grow. It was so funny. They were just adorable. But again, they had so many wonderful questions for me. They're all the tribes. They are very based on that everyone has female and males have roles. The men are strong. The men tend to the land, they protect, they provide. The women, they are nurturing, they have the children, they take care of the home. But these are polygamists. They have multiple wives. The Hadzabe are monogamous. They have one wife. That's possibly reason why the Hadzabe are almost extinct. They only have a few children. When I look at Mateo, his father has 4 wives. He has 32 children. His DNA will go on and on and on. But when so they had to do this. I believe that this is why they think the way they think. It also helps with tending to the livestock and tending to their lifestyle. But to see how they live together was beautiful. All the wives are like sisters together. You know, they live in separate huts. Each woman has to build her own hut. Same here. Each woman builds her hut of the wife's, but they all help each other. If they're going to have children, those other wives will come and help to birth that child. It's a beautiful relationship to see them. Beautiful, very, very beautiful how they are together. Now we go to the Iraq tribe. This is an agropastoralist. So as an agropastoralist, they're becoming more contemporary. You can see they're very clothed in regular clothing. They are afraid of the government. They have told me that the government has told them that they can't have raw milk because it would kill them. And so they boil their milk now. So they're afraid of bacteria. And I said, but did it ever kill anybody before when you were doing raw? And they said, no. And we're like, so, so I asked, I said, when they want to give me milk, I said, could you give it to me raw and not boil it? Because I wanted to show them I'm not afraid. You know, our gut microbiome can handle these things. It's ancestral. And so they said they're going to start rethinking. But they are now vaccinated because they're afraid, because the government is telling them they have to have all these things. This tribe, they will walk 10 to 12 miles to the local village to go to a doctor to get what the government's telling them. I said, but you grow corn. I said, have they come to you and told you that they want you to switch over to their genetically modified? And they said, yes. I said, what did they tell you? And they said, well, because we would be better off with not our heirloom, with their crops, because it's going to be growing more faster. It's going to have more yield. And I said, please don't. I said, they're loaded, they're impregnated with chemicals. It's not, please stick. And so he said, I will stick with what our heirloom, and I will not change. So I'm hoping that I was helping. I'm hoping I didn't want to scare them. I just wanted to say, please don't change. Don't broke what was, don't change it. I said, your guys were so good. So this is where we lived here. This is where we're living under the trees, because I was burning so badly. Anyone, now this is another piece, a key piece. All the gurus out there who are saying, oh, we are designed to be in the sun. Let me tell you, if you're not from Africa and you don't have dark skin, you are going to suffer like there is no tomorrow. And the tribes didn't understand that until they watched me. They weren't used to having a white person with them. And I was covered. I don't use sunscreen because I'm allergic to most stuff I can put on my skin. I'm very natural. And so I had my hat on. I would get sunlight in my eyes, but only for a short time because I have green eyes and they're one of the most fragile for sunlight. And I also have the 2 genes for macular degeneration, and I'm very protective. Although I do believe the sun can be very healing for that as well. So I get the sun, but then I put my sunglasses on. I had my hat and it didn't matter. I couldn't get away from the sun. And so we were always putting our tents, our campground under a tree so I could be protected. But the burning was unbelievable. The sun was so intense. And so all I can say is we need to understand our DNA. Here we go with genetics again. They have dark skin for a reason. They have a different melanin. They have a different production of what we have, and they can handle the sun. But even they would cover up with their shukas. You could see them when they're out tending to their chores. They would put them over their heads because the sun is so intense. In the Pacific Islands, the sun is intense, but I was in a canopy, mostly in the forests all the time. We were in jungles and we're walking in forests. So I was very protected. I didn't get burned at all there. But here, you can't get away from it. The sun is brutal. And so we have to be careful what we're telling people. Yes, we need the sun. But I think when you are extremely fair and we have a certain amount we can only handle and be wise. The peak sun time, I go out in the morning when I'm here, and I live in a dark region. I live in upstate New York. So I go in the beginning of the morning and later in the afternoon. I'm not going to go in the peak season, in the peak time of the day where that sun is intense. It's aging. My skin aged so fast when I was there. I mean, I feel like I've gotten definitely more wrinkles, and hopefully it will heal over time. But it was definitely damaging. Definitely damaging. This is what they eat. This is inside their home. Doesn't it look quaint? They've got some blankets and things that they've hung on the walls. Again, they're made the same way with the sticks and the mud and the dung. But again, their diet, I think because they've been scared by the government, has become mostly the ugali and the makande, which is the beans and the corn. They do drink milk, a lot of milk. And again, their meat, very, very rare, even though they've got all this livestock. But most that's for their milk. They do consume the milk. And I think the milk is their saving grace. Their milk is their saving grace. Again, beautiful. Look at this landscape, looking out all the time, looking out. We have to have distance light. We have to be doing distance. This is again in their region, how they put their, see where the trees and so this is where they corral their livestock so that they're right near their huts at nighttime, because again, you've got to worry about the hyenas, the leopards, anything that's going to come to get their animals, they have to protect them. The babies, the young, the lambs and so forth, the goat, the kids, they a lot of times they sleep right in their huts with them at nighttime. They love their animals are so prized, so prized. This was a pristine, look how clean the ground is compared to when I was at the other Tatoga. The flies were everywhere. There wasn't hardly any flies here. And I said to Mateo, I said, honey, why is it so clean here? I said, look at it. It's like they're sleeping. Even in their hut was so clean compared to the other where there was not a lot of flies. There were some flies, but not what there was. This is why. This is happiness. Happiness is the 13. There's 8 children. And Mar is he was the father. He just loves his family. He was so proud of his family to see the way he takes care of them. The children are so active in their chores. But look what she did. Happiness goes over and she gets some branches and she's sweeping. And I have this on video. I'll be sharing all of these things eventually as well. She's sweeping to keep it so clean and pristine. They have such pride in their homes. And again, I kept saying on the videos, I couldn't live like this. This is beautiful. It was just so, they have dirt floors, but they were so clean. You know, it was just beautiful. Absolutely. And she, of course, Happiness, she was just waiting on me all the time, bringing, and this is raw milk. They went out, and this is raw goat milk. They went and milked right there for me and brought it to me. And I hope that they saw, I was elated to have the raw and not boiled, because I have never been able to drink milk throughout my life because I've been so allergic to it. And before I left to the Pacific Islands, because I knew we were going to be eating so many sweet potatoes and oxalates, I started consuming raw sheep dairy. And because for celiacs, I think that's the safest for me because they aren't fed any grains whatsoever. And so that I think is helping me. And dairy is, I think it's powerful, very powerful. Again, here we are with the family, and we had some great live chats, but this family, again, they had some dental problems. Only one man though. He was 60, he was my age, 62 years old. And I could tell he didn't want to really talk a lot with me. And I said, it's okay, you can share anything with me. And I said, is there a problem with your dental work? And he said, I don't have any teeth.
Uh-huh.
And I said, what happened? And he said, in my 40s, in his language, he said, I got periodontal disease. But all their teeth were beautiful. And I'll be putting the pictures up on social media as well. Their teeth were beautiful, just his weren't. And they eat a lot of plants, they do, but their milk, they do consume a lot of milk. You can see milk is being used all the time. And I think that's powerful. I really believe it's a powerful thing. And you'll see how important it is with the Maasai. And
I love that baby in
so
your arms. Look at the baby.
yeah, I just wanted to take them home. It was like, the children were just, and that's another thing to speak about. Their children in all the tribes were what we used to be. Remember, they have no contact with social media. They aren't bombarded with horrible images that are just, I've been writing about this a lot on other people's pages. Our children, and remember, I've been an educator. I was teaching for more than 30 years. I know children, and I know what they were when I first started teaching to them when I retired. It's like they were different people. The children were like how we were when we were growing up. They were full of life and they just loved to play. They couldn't wait to get outside. And by the time I retired, I would say about 10 years before I retired, I started noticing a decline. And that's when the technology started bombarding my classroom. It was infiltrating so horribly. And I kept going to the administration saying, please, we're damaging the children. This is doing more harm than good. And they're like, well, what are you seeing? I said, everyone's got to be seeing it. And I said, my children, they can't even they can't give me eye contact anymore. I said, they're like zombies. They don't want to go outside anymore. They just want to just sit there. I said, they're just lifeless. They're coming in and telling you they're having nightmares because of what they're seeing. I said, they can't even speak anymore. I said, to teach them language, to teach them how to read. I said, they don't know where to put their tongue. And so I was telling everyone in the community, all the parents, I mean, I don't even have a TV. I took my TV out when my girls were growing up because I felt I wouldn't even invite these people in my home. Why are we watching this? And so everyone thinks that's mean, but it became the most beautiful thing because we had the most beautiful quality time together. And a lot of the parents in the community started saying, we're going to follow the same thing. We have to put these things down. The children, and these children were proof of it. They were like how we used to be. They just were and they were the polite, oh my goodness. When they enter in the Maasai, they enter and they will bow down to an elder and the elder will touch their head. And they will never speak back. There is no derogatory language. It is the most utmost respect. It was just the most beautiful thing. And when I go places, and I'm always watching because I'm a researcher. I'm always watching people, and I see how children talk to their parents, talking back and talking down. And that was one of the reasons I took the TV out, because I remember watching, I don't remember the show because we're talking probably almost 15, 20 years ago, where it was like a husband and the women and the mother and the children were mocking him, degrading him, berating him. And I looked at my daughters and I said, I'm sorry. This is unacceptable. I said, a family looks up to the man. And I said, and the woman is a loving, kind person. She is not rude. And I said, and the children don't talk back. I said, I can't do this. And to see the children doing exactly how we were growing up back in the 60s, the respect was so beautiful. And we've got to get back to this. We have to get back to this. And this is a key point I really want to talk about in social media, that in the gender. I don't know if you saw that conversation that I had with the Hadzabe. I did the men and the women, and I kind of had to back off because I realized how if they were so upset. When we turned the camera off on this, they were just literally, they didn't know how to handle the information. And I felt terrible. I kept apologizing. I shouldn't have brought this to them because they didn't know about transgender, and that children with, questioning, am I supposed to be a boy or a girl? That was, they were just shocked. Anyway, now we're heading to the Maasai. This is the famous Lake Natron. This is one of the most caustic bodies of water in the world. Most bodies of water are like about a 7, maybe an 8. This is a 10, 10.5. If you were to touch it, your hands would literally burn. But these flamingos, these lesser flamingos, have learned to adapt, and it doesn't damage their body. So 75% of the lesser flamingos in the world will go here to breed because they know that no predator can get them. They can't get out into the water because it would harm them. It's magnificent to see this, but it was thousands of flamingos everywhere, just beautiful. So we travel, and now we get to our first Maasai. This over here is this is the second Maasai we go to. These are the Murans. The Murans they're warriors, and that's from the ages of 15 to 30. And this is where they learn to be a true man. Even though from the moment you're born, you're taught what a man is, this is where it becomes the real McCoy. And so this is where we hear about that they eat just the massive amounts of meat, milk, and blood, only at that time of their life. After that, it's a lot of milk that they're consuming. These guys do not have anything to do with religion during that 15-year period because they feel religion makes them soft, will make them weak. They cannot, they must be. And I really, there's videos of this, and I've got some more coming out soon. They are really rough, especially around women. And so, especially seeing me, this foreign woman standing there, this is a wedding that we had gone to, which I'll show you in a minute. But so this is the second tribe. This first tribe over here, this is a church service I went to that they had for me with Mateo's family. And that's the first tribe we went to. So let's head on into that one. So this was where we stayed here. We spent most of our time here. It was with the Maasai in the Letiet family. And so here we have 3 tents. So this is important to listen to because we had something bad happen. So this is my tent over here. Now I have like an organic tent because I'm so sensitive to smells. So this doesn't have all these chemicals that have been sprayed on them. It's made with very natural materials. And so Meneno, who is my chef, we had to have a chef because of we talked about, he made sure that because there was more rain in this region and it got very cold at night. So I actually would put on my long john, my thermal underwear outfit because I was so cold, but the torrential rain would come down. So that protected me. We also had a third tent though. So this is my tent. The boys' tents over here, this was our supply tent because we knew we were gonna do a lot of slaughtering. And this was gonna house a lot of our meat that we'd be eating the next day. And we thought we're all set. Wait till you see what happened on that one. So here's all the tribe coming over and they're helping us get all set up and so forth. This is gonna be our home for the next, week. So here we are. This is their boma. Now a boma is again where their home is, but they also where their livestock. Their livestock is so important to them. And so they house them right within where their home is. Again, over here, you'll see this is Mateo's family. This is his brother and wife and their family. And this is where their livestock is. And this is also part of Mateo's. So they built this fence. This is where the goats and the sheep stay. Over here is another big area, which I couldn't fit in the picture, is where the cattle sleep and stay at nighttime. During the daytime, they're all out. They're just out. And this is why the men walk 12 to 15, 20 miles a day, because they're walking and walking all day long with their livestock. This is very important to remember this. And so that's what we call a boma. This is the region, but they've got other family members all close, very close by. They've got some neighbors. They're all so close. And this is the key, I think, to part of why they're so pristine. It's also the same thing in Okinawa with many of the longevity. You talk about their community. First of all, they knew I've always wanted to be a Maasai. I've studied them my whole life. And so they came right out and they started dressing me and they had all of this ready for me. They had made all this jewelry for me because they love to put all their jewelry on, and they're masters at beadwork. And so so they wanted to put my cell phone in it. And so this is what I wear around my neck, and all their jewelry was just so, I was so blessed, so blessed. It was overwhelming. This is Mateo's mom right over here, right here. This is his mom. And these are his stepmoms and aunts and so forth that were there. And so that was just a beautiful thing that they had. So I lived in those kind of things the whole time I was with Maasai. This is the slaughter camp, my first slaughter camp. Women are not allowed. But because I'm not a member of the tribe yet, I was able to be there. And I felt so welcome. They were so wonderful. I didn't understand most, but Mateo kept translate, and we had lives. Of course, you've got to go watch the lives, guys. You can go watch them. They're there. I also have regular videos. I still have more I have to still post, but it was so beautiful. Notice the knife. Again, these knives are made by the Datoga tribes. Okay, the ones that were the blacksmiths. That's where the metal comes from. And it was so neat because they had just slaughtered a sheep. And so I'm going in like, oh, you know, not knowing what I'm going to see. And then it's so neat because in the trees, you can see they've got body parts hanging. So over here, this is the suet from around the liver. You got a leg laying up here. This is the head of the sheep. I'm like, oh, well, look it up there, you know? And then this is oh, hold on. This is a leg over here. And it's interesting because in the Maasai belief, the way they think is just so powerful. Everything they do must have a purpose. So each body part goes to specific members or genders in their tribe. So one leg is always given to a neighbor. It's just the generosity. You always give a leg to a neighbor, the kindness. The other pieces, for example, and I'll be having other slides I'll be posting online as well that will actually map it all out what they have. So I'm going to do this from memory. I'm probably not going to get it. But the back goes to the girls. I think maybe, yeah, I think the back goes to the young girls. The chest, I believe, goes to the young boys. The liver from I think it's the sheep and the cow go to the women, and the liver from the goat go to the old men. Notice the nutrients where they're putting them.
Right.
The women who are having their menstrual cycles would need more of the iron and so forth, the nutrients. It was just profound. And so they're showing all these. I was astounded how, and they said, even when they go out and they do their 3 to 4 week slaughtering with the warriors, they will still bring back the pieces that the women are supposed to have. You cannot eat what doesn't belong to you. That's their belief. I thought it was so beautiful. So here we are, they're putting a leg over here on a skewer. And of course, they never put it right in the fire. They believe, but most of their food is boiled. They boil it in water. No more than, you know, we hear about all these bone broths and stuff. And I said, well, don't you boil them for hours and hours? Like all the gurus say we have to have all this bone broth. They said, no more than an hour and a half tops. No. And so they don't. It's just very quick boil. And again, their meat is very tough because it's not aged. It's as fresh as you can get right here. And very tough. Again, it was taking me forever to get through small little pieces. You know, they were giving me the stomach to eat. They were giving me the intestines to eat. I was a little leery, you know, because you could still see some of the bile and stuff in there. But I did eat it, and it's very rubbery. There was no flavor. I said, there's really no flavor at all. You know, but they loving it. Oh, isn't it so good? But they were just chewing through it. Again, their jaws are so powerful, so powerful. Notice how important their machete is. They carry that with them all the time. I kept thinking, boy, I wish I had one. You know, you go through the bush and you're going to cut through things, and but they're not really washing it. They're just kind of wipe it off, and it's the same thing. So, and they're cutting right onto stones. It's not a clean surface. We just eat what we eat. You know, you're not washing your hands all the time, sterilizing things. We're touching raw meat. But here's the key piece. This next thing. There's 3 things I'm studying right now. I'm researching, and I think this is powerful. And I fear that what some of the things we're sharing on social media could be doing harm. So we have to really think about this. And I'll share. In this pan over here is what they call their bark. And we hear so much about their bark. It's like a bark and a branch. They slam it and they smash it down. They boil it for about an hour. While that's boiling in its own separate pot, it has to be a separate pot. They're then over here in this thing, they're boiling all different kinds. Their soup. This is their famous soup that they just believe is healing. And I believe there's a piece to this. Their wisdom is unbelievable. So they boil it, and this is going to have like the stomach. It's going to have the heart, you know, intestines, like the chest. It's going to have different pieces in this with the fat. The fat is very important to them. So that cooks. Once this broth is done, they're not going to consume the bark. They don't consume a lot of plants. But it's the nutrients that have extrapolated into the broth that is the key. They take that, they pour it into the soup, and it has to be done for a half an hour. They will stir and they will stir and they will stir. And he said, it has to be this way. And I said, why? What is the point? What is the ancestral wisdom here? And they said they believe, and now that I'm researching it, it's panning out to even more than what they believed. There's specific nutrients that is in this bark that they have, which I'm going to be writing about. There's so much, I have so much to share with everyone, so much. That it actually, they believe that when they're ingesting this with this soup, that it helps them, it reduces the fat and allows them to digest it better and to absorb the nutrients better. But I'm finding out even more in my research, which I'll be sharing, which is very powerful, because when we think about the high saturated fat diet, and so many people are saying, no, we can't do this, we can't do this, there is something very important about this. And they do believe this, that if you're going to eat this kind of meal, this kind of fat content, this has to be done. And so my fear is, what if their ancestral wisdom is correct, which it's looking like in my research, that those of us who aren't doing this and we're ingesting so much fat, what if it is causing us harm? And we're being guinea pigs. Here's the next piece of my research. There have been autopsies done on the Maasai. Their arteries were clogging. However, they're larger, they're wider than ours. And so scientists are wondering, is it because their movement, they walk so much that it allows and expands everything to allow them to continue to live very long lives, even though their arteries are blocking? Number 3, this is why I spend hours and hours and hours doing is researching. There's also some studies been done that they have a genetic DNA change that's happened over time that is allowing them to be able, and this has happened in many cultures I've been studying, that they have this different genetic component that many of us don't have, that they're able to consume such a high fat, saturated fat diet. So there's 3 things I'm checking on. I asked the elders about this, and I said, what do you think? They agreed. And they said, this soup, this bark is hugely important. They also use this bark in their chai tea. Here's their chai tea. Every morning, this is made, it's milk with some water and the bark and some either honey, if honey's in season, or cane sugar, which they get from some of the other tribes that grow it. And so they do add sugar. They do have some kind of sugar as well, but not a lot. And they consume at least 1 liter of this. This is like the beginning of their day. They only eat twice a day. They will consume 4 liters 4 to 5 liters for a woman, 6 to 8 liters for a man a day. They will consume meat 2 to 3 times per week. Again, remember, it's split up among all the tribes, the people in the tribe. I didn't get much. There wasn't a lot. And it's not a cow. They only will eat a cow during either a circumcision, a wedding, some big celebration. They do not want to slaughter their cows. So that's why they have the goats and the sheep, because the goats and the sheep can live in rough conditions. The cows can't. In the summertime, in the dry season, they lose so much of their cattle because the government has taken so much of the land away. They have no places to go anymore. And so there's no green places and they end up dying. But the sheep and the goats, they can live on less. And the goats, they don't eat, they eat bark, they can eat a lot of different things. The goats are very easy to maintain. But it was so powerful to see this. So I said, but this is now. What would life have been before the government took the land away? Were you still eating like this? They said, no, we would have had more. We would have had more cattle. Therefore, we could have been eating more meat. I said, but how much meat? They said, again, when we go, the warriors go, it's pounds of meat. They said kilograms they were eating. But for me, I said, make it for me. They said pounds of meat, 4 or 5 pounds a day. But that's only when those few times a year that they go to the big, huge slaughtering camp. when they come back, they have to go back out and tend they have to tend to the, their livestock. And so they would eat, but not the massive amounts that we think that we've been told that they're eating these massive amounts every day. That's only during the slaughtering camp time when they have it. The women they've always been more the milk base. Milk has always been more their diet. They do eat meat, they do, and they love their meat. They love the meat. But milk is their go-to. They're not killing animals. And they said, we don't want to kill animals. That's why we don't hunt. We want to live one with the land. So their diet is very much in ugali. Some of the Maasai are putting ugali in. This tribe I was with, because they're so adamant, only a few of them are starting to. They just feel that especially in the summertime, when the cattle are dying, that's usually when they add the blood. We hear about the mixture when they add the blood and the milk. That's usually done in the summertime because the cows are not producing a lot of milk. And so that helps to extend the milk by putting like 50-50, part blood, part milk, because the cattle can't produce as much milk because they're not getting enough grass because it's not green anymore. And now it's even less because they don't have the land to take them to. And this is why the ugali is coming in. And I asked the elders again, are they noticing a difference? And they all said, absolutely, absolutely. We have to stick to our diet as much as possible. So again, the men walk all day with it, but the women have different chores. And I did this with them. It was unbelievable. Again, I did live chat on this. They are out. We had to walk quite a ways to get to where we could chop wood. Every day they have to do this. They're chopping and they're chopping and they're chopping, and it took forever. And then they're bundling up, and they're making, these were at least 150 to 200 pounds that they were lifting onto their heads. Now, they were talking about my muscles, what are these? What are these? They put me to shame. Now, I broke my arm at the beginning of this whole thing. So I didn't tell anyone, because I knew if I told them I broke my arm, they probably would send me home. So I didn't tell anyone. So I couldn't do a lot of lifting, but I was trying so hard. I just didn't want to refracture what I had already, I thought I can't do any more damage. So I probably was only carrying 100 pounds on my head because I had to hold it and stuff. But they had at least 150, not 200 pounds.
I saw that videos.
Oh, could you believe it? I could not believe the strength in these women. And they were putting it right onto their heads themselves. Talk about strength. And we had to walk, a couple miles with that on our heads. And the strength that they have, that was just one chore. Then they had to go and get water and bring that back. And it was miles to go. And then they have to do their laundry. Here she is doing her laundry. All of these things they're doing. Then they have to milk all the sheep, all the goats, all the cows in the morning, and milk all the sheep, all the cows, and everything at night. They're moving constantly, and they're consuming over 5,000 calories a day. And here's the breakdown. Oh, I don't know if it's on this one. I may bring up another one because I want to show you that if we have time. I've got a breakdown of what their calories would be with milk, just in the milk. It's for now. I'll bring that up in a minute. So here we are again. They make beads as well, because that's how they make some money to help buy the things that they need, to help buy cattle and so forth. And so they were trying to show me how to do it. No one wears glasses, just like in the Hadzabe. They just pristine how that they can see. It's just, and again, night vision, unbelievable. Here's the men out here. Look what they're just walking, and they walk and they walk. Again, this is the wet season, so it's beautifully green. But in the dry season, everything's dead. It's awful. Here I am over here milking a goat. Very simple. I was like, oh, this is easy. But boy, when I went to the other Maasai milking a cow, I was like, oh, I finally got it. But boy, that was a tough one. But anyway, these are the elders. I did the live Instagram chat with them. The man in the middle over here, this is Mateo's dad. He's in his 70s. And then these are the two elders. They know that they're pretty sure they're in their 90s. And the way they know that is they're so smart, the Maasai. When you're born, they have a certain section that they have the name for. It's like a 10 to 15 year period. So if your name is, they give it a name, and they'll tell you this is the group you're in. Then you can kind of say, well, I know I'm around this age. That's how they remember. Or they think of something that may have happened in the world that they heard about that was near the time that they were born, and that's how they can try to remember. But they're close to 100. And so I ask them again, you know, are they fully squatting when they go out to the bathroom? Absolutely. You know, they walk again. Notice they all have a stick. That's not a cane. This is how they tend, and it's like they're shepherds, and how they kind of move sometimes they have to kind of move and tap the animals to move along. They don't, they walk. And I've got videos showing you how you see how they're walking. You wouldn't even know they're in their 90s. They just walk, you know, and they said it's powerful for them is movement. We have to move. And they said part of our diet, you have to move when you eat like this. You have to. So anyone who's telling us that we don't have to exercise if you're eating a low carb diet, yes, you do. You have to. It's dangerous if you don't. It's dangerous. We have to. It doesn't mean to go to a gym. They don't. They don't believe in that. When I told them what I do, they're like, why? You know, I said, just walk. Just walk. And so just walk. Walk. We're walking. And then every night they would bring me my fresh raw milk so that I can have before I go to bed.
They're lifting weights though. I mean, those
They're
ladies are lifting
living,
weights.
but the men don't. The men don't. But the women are, they're lifting more than what we would be doing. They were just unbelievable. And again, when I do it at home, and this is something that people don't understand, I have my own gym in my house, in my basement. I have my weights, but my best workout is when I have logs and stones out in my yard, and they're all different shapes. Because if we're just lifting the same weight, the shape of it's not working. Different muscles. But when you have logs and sticks and all these different things, they're so different and they're so cumbersome, and you're lifting them so differently, you are working out muscles you never knew you had. And it's a whole different ball game. And so anyone who's in the gym, I'm telling you, make an outdoor gym, because that's my favorite thing, is to be out in my yard where I've got my logs, and they're very heavy, big, long things. And I'm lifting them, and my stones and my rocks, and I'm carrying them around. I'm squatting and picking them up. It's powerful because it's a different kind of a workout. It's real natural, and you're getting little small, intricate areas you wouldn't even think of that you can't get in a gym. It's different. It's so powerful. So this is what happened to us. So that third tent that had our supplies, and we had another slaughter, and it had a whole bunch of raw meat in there. So in the middle of the night, I'm trying to sleep, and I hear this ferocious attacking. And I thought my team was being killed. So I'm screaming at the top. I'm, oh my gosh, I'm like, what's going on? And then Mateo, he's like, they call me mom, we got, we're okay. Just don't get out of your tent. Don't get out of your tent. I'm like, oh my God. And it was just awful, the sounds that we were hearing. It ended up being a couple wild hyenas were attacking, and they ripped into this tent. They took all of our meat, but the dogs, all the tribes have dogs, and the dogs are so beautiful. This is Simba. And Simba, notice all the flies all over Simba. Every morning I'd unzip my tent, and Simba would be outside my tent, sleeping there. And he was just so beautiful. And I think they're part of how they protect their family. This part of the dogs see them as their tribe. You know, this is my the alpha. It's just their pack. It's part of the pack, and how they protect them is amazing. But the hyenas, the dogs weren't aware until they heard Mateo, and then they came and they were right there to help, but they already done the damage. So it was, you know, you never know what you're going to deal with. You never know what you're going to come up against when you're living out in the bush. It's not going to a hotel. This is living in the wild. So here we are. This is these are the gifts. I always gave gifts to the tribes when I would leave, and the greatest gift you can give a pastoralist is cattle. And so I thought, I'll give them more than that. So I gave them a pregnant red cow. Red cows, they're kind of cows that they have are called zebu cows. They're totally different than ours. They've got the hump, and their milk is much more rich in fats and lactose and carbs. And so it's very decadent. It's very much like a sheep. I do sheep milk. It's very much like a sheep milk. Very, very rich, very rich. So I bought them a pregnant red cow. I bought them a pregnant sheep, a pregnant goat, and then a regular goat. And so they will be able to have life and food for a very long time from those animals. And then I was very blessed to be able to go, and tell me if this is running over. We can stop whenever you want, darling girl.
We're 2 hours, so we're gonna whiz through it. I think so. Yeah, it's been over 2 hours. So
oh my God. Well, I'll go real fast.
I think
we'll go real fast.
You have probably 2 or 3 more.
Okay, yeah. So what we have is, this is when I did I went to the inauguration of the new chief of all the Maasai.
Yes.
And he was this is him right here. and his name is Chief Kiaro Oltendo, and he's become a very dear friend of mine, and we text a lot. We're always talking to each other, and it was rare. I was the only white person there, and they were so welcoming, and I just had the front row seat. I was right down recording everything. They were bringing me, this is the slaughtering camp. They had slaughtered so many animals because there's thousands of people, chiefs from all over coming to see the main chief being inaugurated. It was just thousands of people. So they brought me a whole calabash. This is a calabash. This is what they put their milk in. And
right.
this is grown. Yeah, this is grown by the Sanjo tribe, which was the last tribe I went to. This is it's a gourd that they hollow out and they put their milk into this. So they brought me this a liter. They brought me a full fresh liter of raw milk, and Mateo's like, what? How come we're not getting, why are they treating you? And then they brought me all this beautiful fresh slaughtered meat. And it was just, I felt like royalty the way they were treating me. It was so beautiful. I felt so welcomed. Here's Chief. He came to my hotel. I was getting ready to leave, and he came and met me there, and I did a live chat with him there. And he just wanted to find out my feelings and what I felt I could do to make life better for them. And so I'm hoping I can help them. This is a 102-year-old Maasai, and it was Tembo, my driver's grandfather. And we spent the time with him. And the video, I cannot tell you how profound that video was. He is so handsome, his teeth, everything, his hands were so beautiful. He didn't look old. And he was heading right out after that to go tend to his flock, just pristine. Here we are getting ready to go to our next Maasai. Here we are. This is our next camping grounds we're at. This is a much different climate here. It's very hot and dry. It was just sweltering here. We went to a wedding. This is the bride and groom over here. And it was just unbelievable to experience a Maasai wedding. It was just unbelievable. Here they are. We went down to the slaughtering camp at the wedding, and they were giving us, here's, have this leg. They were just cutting pieces off for us. And I felt so welcomed. It was just beautiful. And then the groom's mother came right over to me, and hold on here. The groom's mother came over to me, and she just started putting all her beautiful dresses onto me. And this is what I have over here on. And so I felt like here I'm a Maasai again. And so this is one of the Morons. The Morons, he came over to me, and they were all about my hair, and he was being kind. Some of the other ones were being a little on the rough side with me, but he was just so kind. So we got some good shots with him. And this is what the wedding gifts I gave them. I gave them a pregnant red cow and a pregnant sheep for the wedding gifts. And then here I am learning to milk a cow over here. That was a live Instagram, but I thought, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a flop. But I actually got it towards the end. And she was Naisha, that was the mother to the groom. She and I bonded so much. She kept bringing me fresh raw milk all the time. And I gave her a Bible in the Ma language. And I gave Mateo's mom a Bible in the Ma language as well. And here we are with some of the family members here. Look how tall that they can get. Look at, they're just such perfection in their health. They're just so amazing. Again, milk was so important in their diet. Same thing is Mateo's. Their milk and meat and blood. It's their thing. They are starting to add again the ugali. My hair, yes, was another big ticket there. This was an elderly man. He's in his 90s, and he at first didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to have any cameras or anything on. But the more Mateo kept translating what I was saying, the more he started to respect me. And then he agreed. So there's a 4-part series of him. Amazing. And he did at one point, he blew his nose out the side like this. And I've had some people, colleagues of mine, who have told me that they felt that was very rude, and I should have cut that out. I don't cut anything. I want you to see the real thing. And you could hear me saying, oh, look at that. That's charming. It was so ancestral. How else are they going to blow their nose? They don't have Kleenex. We have to think about this. We can't find offensive things in what nature. This is how we are. If we don't have Kleenex, we don't have toilet paper, we don't have things, we have to do what we have to do. And it's charming when you think we're humans, we're animals. We are animals. We really are. And so in this right here, he's showing me how to make a toothbrush. And this one right here. And so this is how they brush their teeth. And they are adamant. And I really say this, every time you would look over, they've got something in their mouth that they're either one end is a pick, like a toothpick. I don't know if you can see this. And the other end's like a brush. And they would sit there and they're scrubbing their teeth, or they're picking at it, or they'll pick up a blade of grass or something. And they're always making sure their teeth are clean. It's amazing. And look at the teeth. Look at his teeth. He's almost 100 years old compared to the other man there's a difference. There is a difference. Whole difference. This is what it's called, the Salvador Persica. It's in Arabic it's Mizwak, and in Ma it's Oromith. And this is a traditional chewing, and I've done research on this. It actually has been tested over and over in numerous demonstrations that it possesses antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-carcinogenic. In other words, it stops cavities, anti-plaque properties naturally in just this stick. And then we wonder, not only is their what they're eating, but how they're maintaining them with these sticks. So this is really cool. You can actually buy these online, but I brought home a whole bunch of these sticks. So I've got a set of mine for my own. Now we're in the Sanjo. The Sanjo people, I thought that everything I'd studied said that they were going to be more meat eating, more very much like the wannabe Maasai, but this tribe is not. And remember, all the different tribes are gonna be different. So I could go to a different Sanjo and they may be different. This is where we stayed here. This is our tent and our camping ground here. And they've got more peaked. Their huts were, wow, you could stand up inside of them. You didn't have to kind of hunch over. Beautiful. And look at this. This one even has a solar panel because she has a light bulb. She actually has a light bulb in there. And so their homes were just beautiful. Again, she was sweeping and cleaning as well, very pristine. These are the elders here. The elders I found, and they're my age. They didn't have a lot of advanced elders in this group here. They were my age, but they were struggling with their health. This man had something big going on with his knees. The water was just retained. It was just, it had been happening for over a year. And the pain he was in, I felt terrible for him. I asked them in a live chat, about their diet. And he said, we're mostly ugali, fruit and vegetables. And he said, maybe meat once a month. I said, what about milk? You've got all this livestock. Maybe a cup a day, 1 cup a day. And I said, has it always been this way? And he said, no. And I said, so what is the pristine diet? And he said, milk, meat, and blood. And I said, well, what has changed? And he said, it's just the land. It's the same thing all the tribes were saying. But I said, but your tribe is known for growing a lot of fruit and vegetables. And I said, has it always been that way? And he said, no, not until we moved to this region, like a generation ago. And I said, you're growing bananas and things. I said, this is not a natural plant for this region. It had to be brought in, right? And so that's what I'm finding is a lot of the plants that people are eating they're not original to the area. They were brought in. And so when we think ancestrally, would they have normally been there? So when you go to where the Maasai live, that fruit does not exist. It is not in their region. Only in the region where these people specialize in terraced farming because there's no water, but they're able to get water in these terraces that they built, which is allowing them to have these crops that normally would not be growing in this region. So that's what we have to think about, these kinds of things as well. Again, this is where they get their water from. This is how they carry it on their backs like this. In the dry season, they have their donkeys. The donkeys, they have to walk miles and miles and miles, and the donkeys will carry big things off the sides of them. This is their bow and arrows. This is one of the arrows I'm shooting with. So this is how they protect. They are not hunters, but this is how they keep wild animals away. They don't use the Maasai use the spear. These guys this is what they use. They use the bow and arrow. And then on our way back home to take me back to the airport, I stopped. I said, let's just get some meat. So again, we stopped and got a couple trays of fresh slaughtered meat. And then this is what happened to me here. I massive burns. This was healing. At this point over here, my face is burning. Hold on. My face was horrible. You just could peel it off. And then there's a thing called the Nayiri fly that got in my tent, and I had never heard of it before. And at nighttime, if it lands on you and you brush it, wherever you try to brush it, it has like an acid that will come in on your face. And so it leaves this all. So that was on my face. Then I was attacked. Of course, it must be mosquito bites because they're all over. This is the front side. This is the back side. And then I was climbing a tree with the kids. And I spent a lot of time with the children. And I normally, because I climb all the time, but this tree was different than the kind I climb. It was a really rough bark. I usually climb maple trees. This was a very rough. And I was trying to reach over to get a small branch because the branches were too wide for me to swing down. And when I went to reach for it, it was ripping my arm right up to pieces. And I couldn't grab the thing. And I heard my bone break. I heard, and I was like, oh, so I jumped right down. I was way up high. I jumped down, thank goodness I didn't break my legs. But I got over to where Mateo was, and whenever because I've broken this arm 4 times, and it goes into a shaking. It's like in a because the pain is so severe, it goes into like a trauma. And it was shaking. He goes, "Why are you shaking?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. It's just let it go, let it go." And I didn't want to tell him I knew I'd broken it. So I dealt with the pain throughout it, and I'm just getting back. I think I'm up to about 15 pounds now. I can actually now to pick up with that arm, so it's almost healed. And so this has been my I'm sorry it took so long, my dear girl. I'm so sorry. This is the tribes that we visited, and this is the book. If you ever wanted, this is the book that Dr. Knobbe and I wrote together, and you can get it on Amazon. It's on any online bookstore, and it's got many versions. And this is where you can find us and find me right now. I'm at Suzanne Alexander, Suzanne.Alexander 104.